Face front, true believers. Jacob Weil here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And Rohith.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people across the multiverse. We are here to discuss what may be the animation event of the year. That's right. We're talking the one, the only Spider Man across the Spider Verse. That's right, folks. Basically, you heard it here. That's what we're here to talk about. So let's cut anything. Let's cut anything. Dragon, your thoughts.
Yeah, so I feel with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, this was my most anticipated film of 2023. So this is the big one for me. Debatably even more so than Guardians, but those were the two big ones for me. And it's interesting because I went into this knowing that it was going to be a two-part. I had this really interesting theater experience where, getting to the specifics, almost everyone in the theater was very surprised that it was a big cliffhanger the way it was. It was this. A lot of people went into this like apparently not knowing about the whole two-parter thing.
I mean,
So it was quite the fun reveal.
And it's kind of surprising considering the initial trailer was initial marketed as like Across the Spider Verse Part 1.
That's the thing. That's the odd thing. So that's why I was shocked.
In fairness, Blue Dragon and Jacob, those kind of details are really known by the people that are really into following the development of like pop culture and specifically superhero movies. And for the general public, they may not. I don't think they're really following the ins and outs of this, and they probably weren't even aware of this movie till the first trailer came out.
Well, true, but still, this is like
But
the public, and then there's the whole bunch of Spider-Man fans that are going to see the movie.
It was that first trailer that said Part 1.
And there's that too.
No, that there wasn't a trailer that you're thinking of like the promo where it's like, oh, it's I don't think there was even that footage because I think the first trailer that came out that showed actual like characters was like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I don't think there was a Part 1. And I think in the marketing leading up to it, it wasn't like, oh, this is the part. This will continue on to Beyond Spider-Verse. Like I don't think most people are aware. The marketing doesn't really like focus upon like, oh, this is part 1 of 2, a cliffhanger. Like inputs. It's all about like, oh, here's all these different spiders, and here's like more of the characters you love from the first movie. So I think that part is like fine, and also, depending upon the thing is for these movies to do as well as they do, like there's a significant chunk of the audience that aren't like into the minutia as us three are, and like other Spider-Man fans and comic book fans and whatnot.
Well, I understand, but even so, it just still feels like there was like my screening was like there weren't. I don't even think there were any kids in that audience. I think it was like predominantly these were like all like Spider fans that were there, and I was kind of surprised that like amongst them like a lot of people just kind of went to this just really surprised. I knew there was like a question of like how definitive an ending we were going to get, despite it being a two-part. Like, were we going to get like a full resolution or to this part of the story or not? But we went the full cliffhanger, and with that, in terms of how I felt about the movie, I think it's an excellent continuation. We're going bigger for the sequel. It's there's an air of Back to the Future 2 with that cliffhanger, which I enjoy because that's one of the great things about Back to the Future 2.
Which people also compared to Empire Strikes Back in this.
I mean, in general, yes, the second act of the trilogy thing, you're gonna have like, especially the end on cliffhanger. So yes, by that appointment, Empire, Back to the Future 2, what have you, it's pretty good. I think the Arkham Miles is great. It's with the logical kind of follow up that would happen there. Unfortunately, I got some minor quibbles with the ethics of the Spider Society, and we'll get there. And also, there's a little bit of light retconning in a movie where it's only noticeable really because we have one very minute gag from the first movie that has such resonance in this movie. Based on that, it's like, if we're gonna take such an infinitesimal like joke from the first movie, it's funny as all get out, but it's a little joke, and we're gonna make such a big plot point, and we're gonna go back here, and it's like, we kind of fudge some things to kind of make it look kind of basically. I get they're improving upon it, but it still feels like we're matching 1-for-1. This feels a little like, again, it's a quibble. It doesn't really take anything away from the movies. It's something kind of noticeable. Like, we have a few details we kind of fudged, but it only really adds up when we get into stuff about like how the rules of the whole Spider Society and everything work. And again, we'll get there as we break it down. But still, this is a top tier Spider-Man stuff. It really is. And so far it's just again some of the just blows all the multiverse stuff we've done up to this point period out of water. I'm not speaking just to the first Spider-Verse movie. I just mean mainly in terms of like when we do like all the other stuff. Like so far we have not been we've been introducing the multiverse never the same way twice so far, it seems, and we're still having trouble just kind of going full tilt one way or another with it. We're kind of getting bogged down like rules and things. That's not to say we don't have like some rules and stuff here, but it still feels like the flavor of this thing, the way in which we're seeing like all the Spider-Men, like this is how you do the multiverse. We're seeing it all. We're getting the big picture. Getting the full like scope of it. That's doing multiverse right. And I think we're off to the races with that here. So yeah.
All right, I guess Rohit.
I think overall this movie is great. It's really great, but
Yeah.
I think structurally this movie has a act 1 and an act 2, and it doesn't feel like there's much of an act 3, and the way it ends on the cliffhanger makes me feel like, okay, it's Beyond the Spider-Verse going to be an extended act 3, or will that be more of a complete movie? I think overall the movie in terms of animation, it blows the first one and Mitchell's versus the Machines, Puss in Boots, out of the Last Wish, out of the water. This is an achievement in animation, and my hats off to the animation team. I cannot imagine how much they go above and beyond in, no pun intended, beyond the Spider-Verse. In terms of the writing, I think there's really interesting thematic continuity with the stuff about Miles's imposter syndrome carried over to this movie and made on a grander level. There's great dramatic stuff with Gwen and her father, and there's really interesting stuff with Peter B and his hangups of being a father to Mayday. But I think structurally, where this movie, where there's a threshold, where there's something, a wall, a ceiling for me, where I don't think it can push, at least at this point, and make me feel like I like it more than the first movie, is that the first movie I do rewatch it this past weekend to
Me
compare
too.
it to, and in my estimation, the first movie is just well structured in the sense that there's a clear delineation between Act 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
And there is the ending of the first movie is a complete ending, a resolution of the arcs. And when we go into further discussion of this movie and how the plot is structured, I'm going to bring up comparisons of other movies that end on cliffhangers, like The Empire Strikes Back, Infinity War, and I would like to demonstrate or at least convey to you both and to the audience why I feel those movies work with their cliffhangers, whereas feelings with Across the Spider-Verse, it doesn't completely work to my satisfaction in regards to how it ends with its cliffhanger.
All right. I guess that leaves me then. I said, like this, as Rohit said, this movie is like from a visual standpoint, this is like an animator's dream. It's like incorporating all kinds of different visual styles, but behind the scenes, it probably also could have been an animator's nightmare. So I can see it being both. But they just look at this poster alone and like see all the different visual styles that they incorporated into this thing.
That's 5 years of animation, kids.
5 years.
Well, roughly 4 to 5 years. I don't know how the marketing thing ties. Again, I never know how long marketing takes in the animated film process because some depends on who your studio. But yeah, point being 4 to 5 years of animation, right there, kids.
And it was through a massive world upending pandemic. It's.
I mean, just real quick before we get back, James, I just want to highlight this because it's so unique that we have this now, is given how franchised out we are these days. Is the fact that when they did the first Spider-Verse, you get the sense they had no idea they were going to come back for more. They just put it all on the screen, and then it performed so well. It's like, let's do it. And that's why it took 5 years. Well,
I
that and the
mean,
pandemic, but you know what I mean. That's why it
yeah,
took a long time.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yes, back to Jacob. Yeah, what do you got, buddy?
things so you guys know me. I've mentioned this. I was a very big fan of the original movie, and like I love it. I love it. Like everything about it was like it was. I even as in the description, even if I put it like it was like a game changer in the field of animation.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way it incorporated different visual styles, the way it felt like a moving comic book, and the writing and the overall ambition. Like it was a game changer in terms of theatrical animation and animation in general, and even probably even opening up the door to the whole multiverse being a film concept as a whole. So it's like and it's a very seminal movie in those ways, and obviously when I first heard about this, I was excited for it. And like, obviously seeing these characters once again. I mean, it was mainly through Miles, Gwen, and Peter B. Just seeing them again was going to be. I was really looking forward to it, and even then, as the trailers kept dripping and coming out, and seeing more, I was even more into it. And going into it, I must say, I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. I actually the theater I went to was full of people. Like I almost barely got in because the person who sold me my ticket said there wasn't a 7:30 showing, and the 7:30 showing, and there actually was. That's a whole other story. So I almost missed it in a way. Almost missed the very beginning.
Mm.
But like I can't like for reasons that probably like, are similar to both of your guys. I wouldn't say it's as good of a movie overall as the very first one. Who knows? That
Yeah.
might be the
It's the
novel.
first time you fall in love. It's hard to top it.
Well, exactly. So like, and it might be like nostalgia or just bias speaking. And don't get me wrong, this movie is fantastic. Don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, or amazing, spectacular, whatever other word.
It's all the adjectives. It's superior. It's Peter Parker Spider Man. You know, it's all.
Yeah, it's like, yes, it's like so whichever one, even 2099,
Yeah, there you go.
like whatever. So whichever one you really want to use, whatever one of those adjectives you want to use, it works. I just wouldn't say, in my personal opinion, it's only just like probably a step below the original Spider Verse, but still, it's still definitely worth seeing and a great cinematic experience.
Okay, so all that said, I guess the place to start would be the fact that we kind of have a little prologue in this movie. We kind of opened with Spider Gwen, you know, Ghost Spider or Spider Gwen, any adjective you'd like there, well, any prefix on Gwen.
Which, and you can tell like that one of the reasons that they did for this was to like show like how improved their visual palette is.
Yeah, so the big thing this movie really gets.
Yeah. When I first saw it, I was like it looks basically straight out of the Spider Gwen comic.
Yeah, so that's the cool thing. Like this movie, it was already present in the last movie, but they were able to go full tilt with it, just given the fact that last time we just brought them into our world, this time we are going into their worlds, and in doing so, we get to give each world that we visit of a Spider-Man a different visual look to it that complements said Spider-Man. So Gwen's kind of like that real watercolory look that complements the not watercolor, but sort of like the
Pastels.
pastel. Thank you. Kind of the pastel look that the Spider Gwen comics had.
And if you've read the Spider Gwen comics, like which I actually did, I read like the 1st volume. Yeah, you already know how Spider Gwen's story unfolds at the very beginning.
Yeah. Plus, we recapped a little bit in the first movie. That helps too. But yeah, it's well captured.
Like where we basically see Peter Parker become the Lizard.
Yeah. So a couple things. Okay, so this is one of my. I only have like 2 problem spots in this whole movie. Okay, this is the first one. So this is great. It's a great way to open the movie. Again, like doing all the Spider-Gwen stuff, and the fact that it's very much it's kind of like obviously it's Miles' movie, but the fact that we start on Gwen and the fact that she's going to be very key in the Miles story, and we've already set up that there's a little bit of a will they won't they going on there a little bit, but regardless, the fact they are friends and the idea with Gwen is that Gwen Stacy is permeated in the Spider-Man story of being kind of a tragic figure and just kind of like in the DNA of that. So there's definitely that tragedy. It's kind of through here is going to be a betrayal as we somewhat of betrayal that we reveal in the movie. My point is, the problem I have is that as great as the opening is, we do have some light retconning going on in this opening here. And again, I don't say this is like a really big, egregious mark against the movie, but only that one of the kind of vaguely retconned issues here when I rewatched the movie after seeing this movie occurs to me that we do kind of have a canon breaking event already, and the whole movie is like is a big reveal with her father here that is like a big canon breaking event. So let me put it this way: for starters, the death of Lizard Peter Parker very different from when we recapped in the first movie. You know, we saw him like die in a boiler room in the first movie, and here we did the full dance, and plus it was like traditional lizard versus like giant, kind of cool looking, like you know, like not monitor lizard, but you know, like kind of like the four-legged lizard, not just kind of our humanized kind of lizard.
Okay.
Was it a boiler room? I thought it was just kind of unclear, which is kind of like a vague background for.
Well, you're right, but I'm using boiler room. It looked kind of like a generic, but it wasn't a school dance. Is my point. It was something kind of generic, but it definitely was not a dance like we did here. It wasn't the homecoming, and the gag here being okay. So we're doing a little bit like the Spider-Man Homecoming event, only it's going to go a lot more different. No Vulture or anything. And I'm sure Jacob, you having read the Spider-Gwen comic, do you happen to recall where the Peter scene went down? Was it Was it kind of like a more kind of like a facility of some kind, or was it like a school dance?
Unfortunately, it's been a while since I've actually read the comics.
That's what I'm curious about. Honestly, I really wonder like which one was actually more accurate.
In all honesty, I think they expanded about it more in this than they actually did in the original comics that I read.
That's fair.
Because in the original one, there wasn't really a whole issue dedicated to that. It was like more like a flashback.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm saying. So, regardless, it's the fact that
I actually have the images popped up.
Okay.
And it looks like when like she's cradling Peter's body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks to be outside of. I think it looks like outside like Midtown High.
The I Want It to Be Special line is lifted directly from the comic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait. Are you pulling up the comic or the frames from the movie?
The comic.
Okay, I just want to be clear. Okay, so it looks like
it's like she's like cradling. It's like looks in daylight, and I think it looks like to be outside of school, probably Midtown High.
Okay,
so it's a woman like a teacher or whatever. That's like.
Right, so it seems we've got a little closer this version than we did in the brief kind of summation we did last time. Okay,
I'm seeing the image you're referring to for the first movie, and it's kind of like. It looks like those. The when you're at like a dock and like those cranes or boxes, creative parts. I see what you mean. It's okay.
But yeah, like that. A lot of that stuff, like the I Want to Be Special line, and like the whole ostracization from everything that is lifted directly from the Spider-Gwen story.
Yeah. So again, the bigger issue is that again in that little recap we had in the first movie, like we saw her "I saved my dad" moment. We're like, oh wait, her saving her dad. That's kind of our canon breaking event here. Of like it's going to end badly for the Stacys.
Unless the canon event in that universe was supposed to be Peter Parker's death.
Well,
no, like he's the fill-in for Gwen dying. That's what happened.
They can't. I mean. I don't know if you want to jump too ahead to like where.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe we should probably stow some.
Yeah,
of this.
yeah.
Okay. Point being, we have a good opening with Gwen. Also, I want to highlight her father. Shea Wiggum plays Captain Stacy. Shea Wiggum. He has a bunch of stuff. I mean, most the Marvel related thing that he has done. He was in Agent Carter, the show. He played Dooley.
And is he going to be in the new Mission Impossible movie?
I think so. He pops up. He was in that Waco series. He was really good in that. And I love when this guy shows up.
It's kind of amazing that there's actually several Marvel alumni in this.
Oh yeah, and plus Brian Tyree Henry. To be fair, he was a Marvel alumni in this before he was in Eternals.
Yep, and Daniel Kaluuya too.
That is true.
We're
double dipping a lot in these, and Liv Shriver too. If you want to go kind of like not MCU, but just in general,
Marvel, yeah.
Where was Liv Schreiber?
Well, not in this, but I just meant like in general in the Spider-Verse things.
I mean, like what other Marvel thing did he do?
Sabretooth,
and X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh,
yeah, okay.
I only literally played the game.
He was like the one good part of that movie.
I only played the game.
But he was still the voice of him in the game.
Like it's been years since I played the game Dragon.
Okay, anyway, to refocus on Spider-Man.
Bring me pictures of Spider-Man.
Okay, now here's actually one issue that this one actually is a retcon that we should talk about. We can talk about here. The link up of the Miles scene. You know, Miles is all happy listening to music at the end of the first Spider-Verse, and this is like a symbol of like something like, yeah, we is indicative of like we didn't know we were gonna have to explain what went into this moment. We just thought we were gonna play it vague if it ever happened, but like, okay, if we're gonna do kind of a Gwen link up here and give it significance to when she shows up in our story, Miles is really going to be in need of some cheering up, so we're going to have to retcon that whole thing of like him being all happy when Gwen shows up in the ceiling, saying "Miles."
Like, Miles, you miss me?
Exactly. So I mean, so that one did really stick out to me. It was like on the rewatch, like, huh. I was watching the theater, saying, okay, I wonder if that like clearly links up, and apparently it does not. So anyway, okay, so. All that said, should we talk about the Vulture sequence, or you just want to like jump into the meat of our plot?
No, I don't mind talking about the Wolf Seeks for a little bit.
Okay.
And that's another clue that fit the whole visual styles of this movie.
Yeah, we have like the Da Vinci looking vulture.
Let me guess. You came from this like Da Vinci like a dimension. You got sucked in, and now you're wreaking havoc here. It's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a good thing that this movie at least maintained its sense of humor.
It was so cool when they had like the vulture like mask that came down when he like fired that like flamethrower or that beam. It was really cool.
Oh yeah.
I really liked that like you felt he was just literally parchment paper from like Da Vinci's like notebooks or whatever. And a detail that I didn't notice until someone broke it down and analyzed the movie is that like whenever he shoots objects, there's like little like descriptions, like how you could see like a device being drawn out by Da Vinci or like the True Man and like scribbles and notes at the side.
I did notice that. Yeah, that was cool. It's a shame they didn't really do much more like that with the other villains. I mean, like that's really the only other kind of villain fight besides the Spot that we get.
Well, I mean, think about this. It's really cool that we didn't just double dip in like the Spider-Man villains. Like we acknowledged some Doc Ocks, but we did not like have like another full on like.
I know, and don't get me wrong. I like what they did with the rest of the villains and all that.
I'm saying it's kind of promising that in these Spider-Verse movies, you know, that's also the tricky thing. Of Miles Morales is that even the game, you know, the Miles Morales, you know, PS5 game, it was kind of in the same vein of like, you know, we can only double dip so often before it gets to the point where like, well, how much we need Miles villains before we need just more Spider-Man villains that are Peter Parker associated. You know, we have like a version of the Tinkerer, like a next gen version of the Tinkerer that was linked to Miles in that, and you know, here it's like, okay, well, this again, obviously it's Spider-Verse, we can kind of play more fast and loose with it, but we had in the first movie, we had
Oh, go on, sorry.
In the first movie, you know, we had like his version of Doc Ock, which, you know, live Octavius, and that was like really cool. You know, we had like, and then we pulled for a little bit from the multiverse with like Scorpion, I think. I'm trying to think. Actually, was Scorpion actually Scorpion?
No. All of them, like all of them were from Earth 1610.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, that's really cool. Then we should
But,
have like a whole bunch of like.
But the thing is, they're probably all were just villains who fought Peter Parker Spider-Man. Then Miles had to fight, you know, move forward.
Okay, fair point. Doc Ock though might have been, yeah.
And speaking of the game, the fact that you see Genki playing the second Spider-Man game, and the fact that the actual Spider-Man from that universe exists within this movie raises a lot of questions.
Yep.
It's
well, remember, we have Spidey Claws. We have like all the media of Spider-Man that does exist. We have like the comic book of Spider-Man, so the game would make sense.
The Spider-Man Christmas, you know, album.
Mm-hmm.
But did the game? But did the game within universe create the alternate version of Spider-Man? Because they actually called him a video game guy.
Yeah.
So it's like that raises, just like I said, that just raises a lot of questions.
Well, if you think about it, if like let's actually utilize the rule, utilize what we know about the multiverse in the MCU so far. So when people dream in the MCU, they're actually are visiting the alternate universes in the multiverse. So maybe the developers in Earth 1610, in dreaming up this game, the idea of it, they were actually in like the universe of the video game, and they just replicated it.
That's entirely possible.
Yeah, and also it kind of fits because
I just think it's also kind of funny that he's referred to as specifically, like explicitly as Insomniac Spider-Man.
no, I get that. I think also there's like certain, I know Graham Morrison in his certain stories when dealing with the multiverse, it's like when characters are reading a comic book, like you go into into the world of the comic book and they're reading an issue of a comic book that you then go to that world, and it's kind of like, oh, and I think that there's another thing where it's like people in reading the comic books, there's like a theory, I don't know if it's within a certain story or just a general idea, it's like the comic books like are like and for the artists who create said stories and based on dreams or imaginations, is based on like ultra universes that just kind of they're seeing and putting it down to pen and paper.
I guess that could make sense.
Speaking of pen and paper, so this Vulture fight.
Oh yeah.
So I love it, but I really want to highlight though because we have 3 directors on this movie, and all 3 of them are rather interesting individuals. Because we kind of had Peter Ramsey mainly at the helm last time; he didn't come back for this. We have 3 guys.
We had 3 directors last time too.
Yes, yes, we did. Sorry, I guess this time around though we do additionally have 3 directors, but 3 different directors. We have Joaquin DeSantos, who was he's kind of veteran in the animation industry. He did a lot of Justice League Unlimited, but the big thing he did, Korra, Legend of Korra, and a lot of that. Yeah,
and he was the first announced director for this movie.
Yeah. So yes, Joaquin DeSantos. A lot of the action, the staging of everything, very much I imagine would be Joaquin DeSantis's department there because of all the experience he has on Korra, and so the guy's seamless when he does that sort of stuff. You have Kemp. It's so weird. The 3 directors feel like a breakdown of 3 elements of this movie. Joaquin DeSantis feels very much like the action and the core Spider-Man-ness of it all. Kent Powers feels like this is the guy who did Soul. He's the writer on Soul, and I believe co-director on Soul as well. I can't recall.
No, he's a co-director in Soul, and he also wrote 5 episodes of Star Trek Discovery and wrote the screenplay for One Night in Miami.
There you go. Yeah. So I imagine a lot of Miles' stuff was Kent Powers, given how well that turned out. And then you have Justin K. Thompson, who was a production designer on Cloud with Chance of Meatballs, pretty much all the Sony stuff that Lord Miller had been involved with, and so the first Spider-Verse. So presumably the art style, the big art style, and kind of like how we're representing all of that in design work, I imagine would be contributed to this guy.
Yeah. And the writers for this movie, but whereas only Phil Lord worked on the story for the first one and screenplay for the first one. Both Lord and Miller worked on the screenplay for this,
alongside David Callahan.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Who's been basically doing a lot of comic based stuff lately.
Yeah. Anyway, so again, you have this whammo blammo action sequence. It's very Joaquin DeSantos-esque, and of course it introduces 2099 and Spider-Woman, who's got a really cool original design for this movie, if you want to understand. We gave her she's got the cool. I love the way her web shooters work. She has the fingertip web shooters. She's got the bike, and she's got this. Also, she's pregnant. I mean, that's kind of unique.
Yeah.
I know they're pulling from Spider-Woman actually being pregnant, but it's kind of nice we've combined all those elements and just kind of she looks vague like Misty Knight, which is kind of cool too.
Well, I think visually she's based off of the comic book spinoff of the Spider-Man Electric Company show. And there's a character named Valerie, who's a librarian who gets spider powers.
That's really
and
cool.
She's a black librarian, yeah.
Nice. I like it. All right, so let's see. So we have the big moment with Gwen at the end of all this action when we bring in the heart here. And this is the thing that really gripped me. It's okay, we're really saying some stuff this movie here. Where Gwen, her identity gets revealed, kind of paralleling, the Andrew Garfield, scene from Amazing Spider-Man. He has to reveal his identity to Captain Stacy so he doesn't get shot.
Where she reveals her own identity to her father.
And it's a big moment. He proceeds to try and arrest her instead of instead of believing his daughter. Obviously, there's a lot of conflicting feelings right there, but he's just kind of going off of instinct on that one. But it really scares her off, and she runs into the Spider-Verse away from her father.
Yeah,
it's a raw, messy scene, man. I was okay, that's how we're opening this. We're setting the tone,
and it is pure Spider-Man.
What's great about that scene, was just how the visuals, were matching sort of the inner emotional state of the characters.
Uh-huh.
It felt very much like adapting sort of the like comic book, quality of where if certain like when you see two characters interacting, like the lighting, the way certain, things just pop in a character's face. Like it was so cool for the animators to really emphasize that particular quality in comic book medium in animation with the pencil.
Speaking of which, when we go into Miles' world, and this is something they established in the first movie, went even further with it here, is the fact that we do a lot of the classic comic book kind of like stuff there, like all the way in which we represent panels and everything, and like obviously they kind of like the four colors, sort of like little dot effect. But specifically, we went even further than like interacting, like calling out the fourth wall stuff, like some of the comic panels and reactions and stuff. We had the notes from the editor. I love the notes from the editor gag.
If we had that, like translating what Vulture was saying, it even began again with the approved by the Comics Code Authority again.
Yeah, that's key. It's key. Be bold if like the next one is not approved by the Comics Code Authority. They're covered either way.
Well, it's actually in line with Spider-Man history, considering.
I know that's what I mean. Yeah,
and I wonder. I guess probably I guess with how dark the ending is, probably the third movie makes like a significant like impression by it's like when you say not approved or just doesn't have the approved.
Yeah, what do you think? A part of me thinks we're just not going to see it, but how crazy would it be if it's there and then it's removed on screen, like it's there and they erase it or like they put an X over it or something,
or it gets webbed up.
Yeah.
Or if they put it at the end, this has been approved by the Comic Code.
No, you don't need that at the end. You just need the whole thing. Like, no, it's not approved. We're going off the reservation or stand on this one.
Or like gets the modern comic book rating.
I mean, yeah, but it's defeating the whole purpose of like the whole like no, it's about Stanley like going ahead without the seal.
And that is kind of one thing that is sadly missing from this, of course, is the Stanley.
Yeah.
But he would have. We know he would have loved it.
Well, of course he would have. He would have gone crazy for it. So, let's check in on Miles here. So this is great. So Miles in the arc here, he's actually become really comfortable as Spider-Man compared to what it was.
Even accepting brand deals.
Yep.
It's like I love that. Like I love in that montage, and that like
the baby powder thing. I'm so sorry about the baby powder.
Well, he had to apologize. He had to make 2 apology videos. It's like, man, this is very like one really keyed in on like Gen Z culture and just like the dynamics. It's like, oh man, Spider-Man is canceled. It's kind of the.
it's like why would like first off, why would he sign up for baby powder promotion? And second,
I can tell you why.
Well, money, of course.
But yeah, not just the money. No, there's no other reason.
And why would he apologize for it though?
He probably apologized, but it could be a bunch of different ways. One, it could be that the company did animal testing. 2, it could be that the powder has like dangerous chemicals that like cause.
Yeah, actually, so that's the thing. There are like a number of like legal ads they throw out saying like if you use like Johnson & Johnson's baby powder, so bad stuff's been happening with the baby powder. Now here's the thing. Here's why he signed up for the baby powder though. First movie, the advice that Peter B. Parker gave him when he was like kind of like offhand, like tossing some advice and then he's about to walk out on him was always use baby powder under the suit.
Huh.
Oh yeah. Well, I also think it's like probably
and then he grew a mustache and had to apologize for that too.
Okay, that one's just that's a satire of cancel culture. That one, like I grew a mustache. I'm sorry.
It's like Spider-Man shouldn't have a mustache where you can like see like one of the Spider-Man
the equivalent of blackface.
It'd be hilarious if it's not just it. I think it'd be hilarious if the reason he's canceled for that is because maybe people thought he was like intentionally doing that to like pretend to be J. Jonah Jameson in a satirical or funny way, and then like people who are like pro J. Jonah Jameson were like wanting to cancel him for that.
Yes. Now it's funny you mentioned that. We should call this out too. We've established a multiverse of J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson.
It's like in every other universe, every Spider-Man changes. All the other characters are different, but in every single that's like a canon event. Like all J. Jonah Jamesons have to sound exactly the same.
All but one, it seems. All but one J. Jonah Jameson.
No, except the one from the '90s when we were Ted Asner.
Well, okay. To be fair, I mean, if you think about it, well, we do have Spectacular Spider-Man in this, so by that logic, it's like, well, I guess all the animated Spider-Man J. Jonah Jamesons would actually be different J. Jonah Jamesons. So the point being, the majority of which J. Jonah Jamesons, yeah,
and the video game J. Jonah Jamesons as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, I forgot that Darren Norris voiced him in.
That's what I'm saying. Like Darren Norris and all that sort of stuff, and also the Spider-Man, 67 Spider-Man. We had like the rumor was that was Stan Lee doing Jameson at the very end in the post credits in Spider. I don't think it was him, but still, it's a nice thought that if it was,
I think it was him.
I'd like to think it was. I really want it to be him because he always wanted to play J. Jonah Jameson.
He even jokingly would say that J.K. Simmons was like played him too warmly.
Exactly.
It's like, but I would like, well, yeah, it's like I think it was like who played it first? Spider-Man, obviously. It's like, speaking of a retcon, I mean that was more like a joke anyway, but that is kind of a retcon considering considering Spider Miguel O'Hara never went back to '67 to just point at the guy. In this movie,
assumedly he was going to recruit him.
It's like, I mean, that is actually a good point because, like,
because a year and 4 months pass in Miles's time, right?
Okay, that is something we do have to talk about. This is like one of the confusing parts of the movie for me, and not confusing. That it's probably it's a thing where I need to see the movie again to see if I missed something. Because they threw a lot at us in this movie. So, I mean, it's something we should maybe talk about later. But let me see if I can gild the lily a little bit here. Okay, so. A potential issue with this movie is how much time passes. Specifically, when does the Spider Society get formed? Is it formed at the end of Spider-Verse? Like, is that when we actually at the end of the first movie?
That's not my understanding because the post-credit scene is like him creating the first wrist device to travel between multiverses.
Yeah.
So it is to my understanding that he's beginning the Spider Society.
Okay, so at the end, that's okay. That's what I'm saying. That makes the most sense if that's the way it works.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying we never really clearly state that here, so it's kind of hard to tell. Because he seems like pretty off to the races at the start of this thing. So presumably time has passed between things, I guess. But then again, it's a question of when did Gwen return home for that opening? But again, it's not. I guess it works a lot better if they're saying if that wrist thing is what it seems to be, like he's just inventing that thing just then. I guess it tracks a lot better to what's going on there because there's a lot of questions of, wait a minute, if you go back to the first Spider-Verse movie, are those characters members of that Spider Society and they're just not telling, which obviously would be a huge issue. Which is like, wait a minute, had none of this come up before?
No,
clearly,
it's clearly like Miguel is starting the society because he mentions about how it seems to me that he's the first Spider-Man to be aware of the multiverse.
It seems that way
because he's the one that
he learned the hard way.
Yeah, so and I think part of it's because he's in the future. Mm-hmm. So maybe in 2099, so maybe that for his society, they have such an advanced knowledge of science and tech that and with him using maybe Alchemix resources, he's able to appear in the multiverse and see a universe where he had a family and then his counterpart died and he went in there. And so probably, from that time afterwards, he then makes an admission to scour the multiverse, find other spider people, recruit it, and establish the society.
And speaking of that, speaking of Alchemix and all that, we have actually yet to talk about the surprisingly improved star of this movie, the Spot.
Yeah, so the Spot. I guess we should dovetail the Miles check-in with the Spot here because they're good. They blend pretty seamlessly. So again, Miles he's struggling to. He's very comfortable as Spider-Man, but on the flip side, he's having the classic Spider-Man issue of the whole dual identity thing, in which he's showing up late to things, and he can't really tell his parents what's going on, and that's causing some scuffle within the family dynamic. And one of the things that delays him is the Spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the reveal of who he actually is.
I know, I love that so much. I love the idea that we went back.
He was the bagel guy.
And here's the thing, I rewatched the movie and I freeze framed it. If you look, the design is consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Owens, but again, because he only had that beard and like that like picture from like when he and Liv were like graduating like college or something. So like that was the point. Like that's him with the glasses and everything, getting hit by that bagel.
They even replicated the fact that he got the sound effect even said bagel.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is one of the great little moments in that movie.
Like,
Clearly, a lot of reverence for it, which is why we've expanded upon it. So the idea we gave the Spot like the little nothing joke.
Mm-hmm.
And we found a way to retroactively put him. We make him like one of the most important central characters to the entire story.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it was like Avi Arad's idea.
I know it's a good thing. Avi Arad. Sometimes not so good decisions. Most of the time, he got some good ideas out of Avi Arad.
Yeah,
He's a broken clock, but he's the human personification of a broken clock.
There you go.
It's he was like, let's just put it this way, like it was his idea to put Venom in Spider-Man 3, but it was also his idea to put the Spot into this, and obviously the execution of how he turned out could be attributed to Lord Miller and Callahan.
One black and white character for another.
Yep.
Well,
I think because obviously like the execution could be execution of how he turned out could be,
I mean,
attributed to Lord Miller and Callahan, but it was his idea to use it, and they went along with it, and look how well he turned out.
In fairness, the Spot is actually, when you really think about it, it is a logical character to introduce in a story like this. Because the thing is, I remember my first introduction to the Spot was in the '90s animated series.
Me too.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Blue Dragon, was the Spot ever connected or ever lead or help decide to see the whole multiverse storyline for that show?
I'm so glad you asked because I was about to get into that. So this was really cool. So his name is Jonathan Owens, which is the actual name of the Spot, and in Spider-Man the Animated Series, which was a lot of people's first introduction to him, in a way like a more widely known, I think the only media adaptation that guy's ever gotten was that until now. With the Spot, is that he was introduced, I think, in season. He was introduced in season 3 in a really good episode. I love the episode, The Spot. Has my favorite Kingpin line, like Spider-Man's a scientist. But so he invented the basically the fill-in for death in Spider-Man the Animated Series. Essentially, that's how he, in quotes, killed off the Green Goblin and Mary Jane.
Yeah, that black whirling portal thing.
Exactly, the black swirling portal, essentially the interdimensional kind of tech there. So basically black hole tech.
Basically that show did Spider-Verse before Spider-Verse.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So well, here's what I'm getting at. So we introduced it in season 3, and then the Spot kind of went through it, and he was never seen again. Now, in the finale, which remember the finale is what arguably what gets the Spider-Verse in the first place. That's when we had all the multiversal versions of Spider-Man. Now the Beyonder brought us to those guys. Okay, the Beyonder is the one who and Madam Web, I guess, whichever between the two of them, brought us to those Spider-Men. However, the big plan that Spider Carnage had to destroy all these multiverses, destroy them one at a time, was using the Spot's technology. So the Spot was involved in that big episode indirectly, but they set him up. Like he was always like our go-to for how we did big bad stuff in Spider-Man the Animated Series. So he's very key retroactively.
It's starting to sound like a bad comic book plot.
Exactly.
And also,
which, by the way, interesting fact, of all these Spider-Men that are in this movie, out of all of them, only one hasn't shown up yet.
Christopher Daniel Barnes Spider-Man.
Exactly. They got to be saving him for the last
one. There's also Neil Patrick Harris's MTV Spider-Man.
All right, fine. There's also him, but to be fair, there are a few CG-looking Spider-Man. It's a little hard to tell. But you're right. We didn't officially hear him.
There's definitely not going to be Drake Bell Spider-Man. I know that for sure.
To be fair, though, that was a lame Spider-Man, and we don't need him.
Oh man, but
it's still kind of interesting to think about the '90s Spider-Man technically did Spider-Verse before Spider-Verse.
I know that's what that makes me think. I always thought what we were gonna do in the third part. Well, it's unclear, by the way, with the whole 2-part thing. My question is how technical are we going to be at the end of the day? Is it going to be a trilogy comprised of the first movie and then 2 parts, or are we going to go full Back to the Future with that, or are we going to go? It's the second movie is 2 parts, and then we're going to do a third one.
I don't know. With the way the titles are, it's like you go into the Spider-Verse, so you go through Miles, and go across the Spider-Verse. Although if people are going to get really, pedantic about it, we really go across the Spider. We go into like maybe 2, 3, or 4. If
I mean, still, you're going across something.
Yeah, but it's like people gave so much crap for Multiverse Madness for not going to so many multiverses, even though we had that one montage.
Well, that's a legitimate kind of like it was like one montage. We didn't really see like infinite Marvel characters. It wasn't like the climax of that What If episode when the Watcher fought Infinity Ultron. That's what we were looking for. Doctor Strange. We didn't do that.
Yeah, but and we go across the Spider-Verse. I guess we do go across because it's like Miles does go to Earth 42. So okay, I'll back that. I'll retract the criticism. And then the third movie is Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
So I feel like the through line is the Spider-Verse, the multiverse, and the web of life and destiny.
Yeah.
I feel like the third movie is the end of the trilogy because if you're going beyond the Spider-Verse, then and considering Miles is as a character is quote unquote an anomaly, he is the disruption, then going beyond the Spider-Verse is maybe going beyond the paradigm of the web of life and destiny, the way Miguel presents it, to where now each Spider-Man has, not to say it's retroactively changing what happened in the past, but moving forward, each Spider person will probably have, the actual great power and thus the great responsibility to do what they can and should do without having it sort of be weaved and having their fate predetermined and whatnot.
Well, I mean that's all nice and dandy. Rohit, what I meant was like, do you think that like, so that you're saying all of that would be in the next movie? Is what you're saying?
Yes, I think that's
what is the capper of the trilogy.
Yes, that's and then I don't think you can. I mean, you could probably make more Miles animated movies, but like in terms of the Spider-Verse thing, I think that will be the end.
Okay, so here's my initial thought going into this movie with the whole 2-part thing in mind was that the second part would be we're going to get we're going to get kind of our equivalent to Tom, like what we did in No Way Home with like Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire would be the animated Spider-Man, like the biggies, spectacular. We knew we were going to at least see him at least see him in the background. As we get him a line, which is even better.
And then when they're both referenced at the beginning of this movie too.
Yeah, that's the thing. So you'd imagine like we're gonna like do the big, pretty much like the Shattered Dimensions thing. We're gonna get them all together, and that will be like the mainly spectacular '90s Spider-Man, the 2003 Spider-Man. That presumably we would do that as kind of our equivalent for the third movie, and that would. But more importantly, though, '90s Spider-Man should absolutely be there because again he starts this whole party in the first place. So we absolutely, if we're building to him for the next movie, if we're going to be limited on our Spider-Man, so we kind of like maybe less like innumerous like this movie, more of like a specific Spider-Man, he would be the specific Spider-Man.
Well, not only that in terms of the Spider-Verse idea, but like I know like this there's the popular 60s like animated Spider-Man show, and like the 80s Spider-Man It's Amazing Friends.
Yeah.
But I think with the 90s Spider-Man, it not only it had the Spider-Verse stuff, but there's a really good video where it breaks on how the ideas that the show and like takes on certain characters is like the inspiration for like the Raimi trilogy.
Oh yeah.
And also it's like it's kind of the foundation for where like all the other animated like I think Spider-Man TS is probably not influential for other Spider-Man animated shows, but a lot of also superior animated shows in general. So I think it'd be very cool for Christopher Daniels to show up. Also,
I mean that show basically set the standard for what Venom adaptations would be.
Yeah.
Actually, what would be really, really cool? What would put Beyond the Spider-Verse over the top for me?
What?
If Christopher Daniels Barnes shows up, and he's reunited with Mary Jane. And that would just make me so happy.
Oh God, that would imagine like can you imagine? Oh, do you think he would do like the whole Mary Jane? What is it, Peter? Oh hey.
No, it's like it's just like considering that show ended on the cliffhanger, and there was like plans from John Semter.
It would give him close. It would be the equivalent to the Andrew Garfield thing we did in No Way Home.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm happy to be a part of this plan. I like it. Yeah.
Like I don't know. Hopefully they thought of it before we did.
Well, surely they did.
Unless they're watching us now and are like, okay, quick, write that down.
Rally the animators, crack the whip.
maybe Neil Patrick Harris shows up and like because that show the way it ended on a pretty big cliffhanger and pretty downer ending with him like doing the Spider-Man No More thing. It'd be kind of cool for him to show up, like to give some hope for Miles. Like, hey, like be you can and be Spider-Man. That'd be pretty cool. And he's done a lot of voice like acting, experience. So
yeah,
I hate to even have him sing.
Okay.
I mean, but speaking of like the Spot and like the different multiverses, I was laughing so hard when he went to Mrs. Chen.
That was
Spot.
also
And the fact that Mrs. Chen wasn't even fazed by it in the slightest.
no, but what's interesting is that it's following that the way that the Spot shows up. It's like Mary Poppins, Who Framed Roger Rabbit and like Chippendale Rescue Rangers, where it's like full animated characters in live action settings. They don't become live action. And so if that logic or that way still holds through for say the MCU, like imagine just animated characters pop. Like what if like you can imagine you can just see the animated what if characters show up in Secret Wars just to help out. That would just be such a wild sight to see.
It's just hilarious that Mrs. Chen didn't even react to it in the slightest. She's she's just like, yep. It's like so. It's like, yep. She just like it's just like not this. You can basically tell she's just like not.
She
this
saw a giant alien symbiote bite a man's head off at the end. The first Venom movie. She's not phased. Also, she was possessed briefly by said alien symbiote in the sequel. Nothing phased this lady. She'll be fine.
Yeah, it's like so Spot just like an interdimensional being just pops out of interdimensional animated being just pops out of nowhere. She's just like, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, and do y'all see what was on the name of the mint gum that he picked out?
I know there was something.
Venomance. Yeah, and it's
nice.
Like it's I think we'll get more into this when we see like the cameos that show up. But it's like one questions whether or not are these the characters that we know in the other properties that we follow, or they're the like variants, quote unquote, that have like similar qualities to like the things we saw.
I mean, Mrs. Chen, I think that's a direct like we're actually going into the Venom movie on that one. That's what I think's happening there.
Which does also raise questions.
Yeah, I mean, here's something to bear in mind though, real quick. We've been very light on the Venom and just in general the black suit stuff in these in the Spider-Verse movies.
Ironically, in this picture we do see like a Carnage Spider-Man and like on the left-hand side.
Well, to be fair on that one, it's Jacob. You might be right. There's also like Demo Spider-Man who looks kind of like demonic-y, so I don't know if that's him. I don't think it's Carnage.
Well, do you guys, I mean, not to jump ahead, but like I remember distinctly in like the canon events, I think someone like Eric Voss from New Rockstars pointed out how there's like this one like Rolodex or set of images that appeared to show that like the creation of Venom to be a canon event.
Oh, really? I listened.
It was specifically with like some things good, some bad, and like the bad was represented by the suit.
Good. Yeah, here's the thing. I was listing out the. I got 4 of this. I think it's 6 because of the Sinister Six. There's like 6 canon events on each web, I think, and I caught 4 of them. I forgot about the symbiote, so that's probably the 5th. I wonder what the 6th one is.
No idea.
That's the thing. Because the canon events that I caught, we'll break down the canon events a little later, folks. But the canon events that I caught were, you have the upside down kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, you got the symbiote. You have Uncle Ben. You have and the 2 Stacys. Gwen, and Captain Stacy. All right. Oh, wait! I know what it is. I know what the 6th one is. I just remembered it.
Yeah.
Spider-Man No More.
Oh yeah.
There you go. That's your 6. Those are the 6 canon events.
The panel was even recreated with Spider-Punk.
Yeah. All right, there you go.
Which is interesting that for those writers that are considered. I mean, that is it is sort of the big events in the history of Spider-Man.
Those are the 6 we do keep going back to, at least in some way, shape, or form. Not always, again, identically, but they are at least somewhat
I mean,
represented.
it's interesting,
which of course explains like the whole meta-ness of the story in a way.
But also in terms of Spider-Man, like when you would think about like say it's kind of what makes Spider-Man such a unique character in like fiction, at least superhero fiction, because for say Superman and Batman, it's like I think Batman has like certain milestones or events, but it's like I think Superman and Batman are kind of more like mythic archetypal characters, where Spider-Man is a uniquely serialized character that like has had so many big events happen throughout his life and throughout his publication of the comics that like, you know,
with Batman, his events are always tied to villains. So that's pretty much all his events. That obviously the origin, and then all the significant events are like Two-Face and Bane.
And like Joker with Barbara and Jason.
Yeah, exactly. Killing jokes. It was like usually the big 3.
Yeah, that would be like Batman's canon events.
Exactly. Those are like the canon events are always canon events are anytime you watch a Spider-Man or a Batman thing. In this case, Spider-Man, obviously.
Well, obviously, one of Batman's would be the death of his parents.
Exactly. You have the death of the parents, like you have like the death of Uncle Ben, and then beyond that, you would have like the significant like events that we always tell. So canon event is essentially something that's like always like the expected things. You're right. The back to the meta thing with the canon events. It is a great meta call out for like the main complaint any Spider-Man movie ever has, which is, oh, you're doing that again? Well, we're saying, yeah, it's fake. That's why that's why it's there.
But also with the fact that these events are so traumatic in nature, it kind of feeds into another thing that people have. It's like, God, like let Spider-Man be happy or just breathe for like a freaking second.
That is actually a very good point. But it also points out it's just like I like how when like you're trying to fight that, it's just like Miguel isn't necessarily painted as a bad guy for trying to fight that.
I would equate Miguel to like Chuck McGill from Better Call Saul in terms of Miguel, like Chuck, is not wrong with what he's saying, but he's saying it in a really harsh way. The guy has no finesse for the situation. He's just being very, very brass tacks about it.
Really, what's funny is that like when Miguel makes complaints about Doctor Strange and Tom Holland's and Peter, the thing is between Miguel and Miles is that dynamic is kind of replicated, and Miguel is the Doctor Strange in this dynamic, and Miguel is the Tom Holland. Although it's not about like
Doctor Strange's like kill the villains, do it.
Well, it's like it's basically like free will versus free determinism. That's sort of the ideological conflict between the two. And also, like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, like utilitarianism versus deontology.
The whole line is like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's like I'm just wondering, like, hopefully they like reference that in the new upcoming Spider-Man game. It's like, yeah, it's like I went into this whole interdimensional thing. But there's like another version of you, actually, Miles.
All right. Okay, so just to circle back to a few things here. So again, the Spot. I love that we kind of parallel, like again, it's kind of a common Spider-Man occurrence. I think most notably in Spectacular Spider-Man, where Spider-Man, he kind of incidentally, has created his villain here, and in this case, he doesn't take the foe seriously, and it hurts their feelings. And because of this, the Spot wants to become the biggest, baddest. He doesn't want to be a villain of the week. He wants to be the biggest, baddest Spider-Man villain to the degree of the big threat for this movie that is going to carry him in the next movie is. We've kind of inverted the colors after he's done the thing to himself, and he is
after basically kicking his own butt.
Literally, he's going to take everything away from Miles Morales, which mainly includes basically Captain Stacying his father, who is basically about to become police captain. He's going to kill him. I love the detail of every time Captain Stacy's going to save someone in a red shirt. It's always him saving like some passerby in a red shirt.
Like Officer Singh.
Yep. Captain Singh.
Captain Singh, yeah.
Yeah, Captain Singh. He was almost a goner. I thought he really wasn't.
It's in Inspector Singh.
Oh, Inspector Singh, sorry.
Okay. Like,
Do
who
they
was?
not have captains in India?
Well, that's not. Remember, that's not India. That's Mumbattan.
Well, all right. Well, Moonbat indeed. Okay, I guess they're blending things. My point is like just given the technicality that we have with the plan to save Jefferson, maybe that's important.
It's basically Mumbattan was basically.
Also, so you go ahead. I'll add something about Jefferson in just a second.
Like I said, how Mumbattan was basically a cross between basically kind of like how in Big Heroes looks like it was San Francisco, it was like San Francisco and Tokyo. This is like a cross between like Mumbai and Manhattan, which is
which is cool.
Yeah, which is a really interesting look, and of course I love Parvati. I love that guy. Like how flawless he basically thinks himself to be.
Of course, Dupinder from Deadpool voicing him, Karan Sani.
which is good. I know, another Marvel veteran.
There's traffic, and more traffic.
If traffic over here, what's that over there? That's traffic. Chai tea, like chai means time. Chai means tea.
Just chai.
Yeah. which of course makes Miles look like a bit of a hypocrite when he
with the whole ATM thing.
It's like when he was criticizing Spot earlier.
Also,
what were you going to throw in?
So in regard to Jefferson, was he did he not have was his last name Jefferson Davis in Into the Spider-Verse?
Yeah.
Yet he's called Jefferson Morales in the second one.
Wait, no, I don't think that's right.
No, he's Jeff Morales. I mean,
I don't think I think Rohith, I'm sorry, but I think I misremembered. I don't know.
No, I'm pretty sure it's.
I don't know. You might want to check that one. Because that's an egregious error. If that's the thing, I don't know.
No, because it's like, here, let me look and just make sure I'm.
I know behind the scenes.
No, it's literally look at just the Wikipedia entries and like the first one, it's Brian Tyree Henry's Jefferson Davis, and then the second, and then the Wikipedia entry for Across the Spider-Verse is Brian Tyree Henry as Jefferson Morales.
That's an egregious error, then.
Well, it's egregious in the continuity, but I think it's right in terms of the in terms of like the ickiness, because it's like the whole thing. It's like having a black guy be named Jefferson Davis, which is the same name as the president of the Confederacy, is like just kind of a weird thing that that people always criticize Bendis for having and naming the character the way. So like him having the white, like the same last name as his wife is fine, but
well, isn't the idea that he's like his stepfather though?
No.
Are you sure about that?
No, Jefferson Davis is Miles' biological father.
One could say he's his biological father.
No, because think of it because here's the thing, Blue Dragon. Why is his first name Miles?
Well, Miles Davis.
Yeah, so it's like that's kind of so that he was Jefferson Davis, and it's like, but for whatever reason, like Miles just has his mom's last name because alliteration, all that stuff. So, but it was interesting. In the second movie, he's called Jeff Morales because I remember distinctly Miles calling him off Captain or like Lieutenant Morales or something like that.
Well, executive judge actually does say this.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a spoiler.
I distinctly remember. No, if you look at the clip, it says Jeff Morales for at least in Earth 42. In the thing for Aaron it's Aaron Davis in like Earth 1610. No, the game it's
still Jefferson Davis.
Davis, yeah, but in the Across the Spider-Verse he's
See, all this talk is now making me wonder if in Into the Spider-Verse did we all just assume it was Jefferson Davis or was it actually
Jefferson Davis? Because like Miles specifically says, "Have a good day, Officer Davis."
So he does say that then, okay.
Yes, and then Across the Spider-Verse, he's like referred to as like Officer Morales or whatnot.
Okay, so that's just a whole mess of confusion. So we're just gonna move past that. All right. That's oh god. All right. Anyway, well, I'm glad you brought that up. So now we know. Let's see. So Okay, so Spot's seeking revenge, which is ultimately going to result in maybe some bad stuff happening to Officer Morales and/or Davis. In this case, Morales.
Like, and I just love like the callback to the whole stairs thing when he's like he's preparing to jump, but then he just decides to go down the stairs.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I don't blame Jeff for that one. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, yep, I would just take the stairs too. It's like, well, then he was actually gonna like get seriously injured during the fight against Miles in the spot.
How good is Brian Tyree Henry in this? As always, he was like he shined so much in the first movie, and here I love that he's still kind of the struggling parent, and we have like some real conversations, and like the birth, like not I keep wanting to say the birthday party, like the promotion party that in which I love. There's this bit where he puts Miles in an unfair position when he's kind of shouting at the party, they kind of out with it already, and again, kind of halts the party and everything. I love how we play that moment. Then later on, he's kind of softened up and he goes to him, actually waiting, ready to hear him out. I like how we played that.
Like, well, he still grounds him they ultimately ground him for 5 months.
Well, so far, we'll see if maybe that gets undone a little. But yeah, so far 5 months.
I mean, I know this is also coming into a bit of spoiler territory, but if he actually does manage to tell them that he is Spider-Man, maybe they'll let him.
Because you have to imagine that's got to be where we're going with this. They're going to find out, and sadly, Jefferson might die. That's the other thing too.
I mean that is another.
I don't think he's going to die, but I'm saying it is on the table. He could. What is your theory, sir?
I have a theory. So the first movie, we see the death of Aaron Davis in Earth 610.
Yes.
And which is the death of the uncle.
Yes. In this movie, we saw the aftermath, the death that Jeff is dead in Earth 42.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two possibilities in Beyond the Spider-Verse. Maybe instead of Jeff dying, it could be Rio that dies in Miles Earth 1610 because she does die because she's she's the first person that dies when Miles in Miles' career as Spider-Man in the comics.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yes, like she specifically dies when like Venom attacks the hospital that she works at.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and then eventually causes tension between Miles and his dad because his dad finds out that Miles is Spider-Man and feels and like distance himself from him because he thinks like Miles is responsible for his mom's death.
And that would explain why we're hyping up Rio Morales in this movie with the nice mother-son moments.
I think like also like Miles, and also I think Aaron like dies in Miles' comics. I don't know if it's like somehow he like gets killed on explosion or whatever, but yeah, and so either Rio dies in Earth 1610 or Miles would just randomly show up in some universe where like Rio's is dead, and maybe that's like a universe where Miles is kind of just contextualizes everything about like where he's gone through, and then makes comes back to the universe and saves both his parents and like changes the whole paradigm of being Spider-Man.
I mean, that's the real question. Are we going to be able to change the paradigm? Because remember, we set up, if you change something that significantly, like you violate the canon event, which again, I might have some issues with. The point, if you violate the canon event, the universe itself will start to dismantle itself. It'll start like going haywire, and the Kirby dot the heck out of itself until it's basically a giant spot will open up, and it's going to disappear into nothingness.
So we should probably elaborate on that. What are your issues with the whole canon event thing?
Okay, so it's so we call it out in the movie, so I don't know how to feel about this necessarily, but I think it's a big difference from this and the simplicity of the first movie for sure. Is that okay? So we have the Spider Society, and that's cool. I love the Spider Society. Dig it.
And of course, all the different Spider people.
Yeah, it's like the MC Escher steps and everything. The idea, like, so the founding of the whole thing is that okay? So we're trying to patch up the multiverse essentially through webs. One could say we're trying to through the interconnected web of Spider-Man. We are trying to patch up the multiverse.
Web of Spider-Man.
Exactly, and to do so, like the idea mainly being like people that are seeping through the big hole that was made by the Collider from the first Spider-Verse movie, and any like odd events like we have with like No Way Home and et cetera, et cetera. Anything that happens along the way, but primarily it seems like the Kingpin event is the main thing that has like really caused the need for the Spider Society, aside from just being aware of it, which Miguel has been working towards because of what happened to him. So, in principle, okay, that makes sense. But then we get into can events. Can events, again, we've already kind of described what those are. It's the matter of, okay, you can't violate these can events, or the whole reality will collapse in on itself, and everything will go haywire, and that leads to the ethical question of, okay, so these Spider-Men all are united in this, and they all know about this, and we love Spider-Man. He's the good guy, he's the hero, he's making the moral decisions, but we've given an impossible position here. We've not just him, we've given all the Spider-Men, but Miles an impossible position, including Miles. Let's just say for this argument, everyone has accepted this argument. Like, okay, we're on the side of like we're going for the needs of the many versus the needs of the few/one. So the idea that, okay, we're going to let our loved ones die for the greater good, and the fact that none of these other Spider-Men have taken issue with that, only Miles, because I know he's the one he's kind of the technicality, which is a really good twist, and we'll get into that. But it's just, I don't know. Making the Spider Society that TVA-esque is a little, it's a little,
or that like
universal.
utilitarian.
Yeah. It's like here's the difference. The TVA, or like just that totalitarian kind of like setup like that, that's impersonal. That's business. That's how it's done. This is like in preservation of like a whole thing, and occasionally we'll like give one of these people personality. But this is like, they're all Spider-Men. They're all like these are like these guys that know right from wrong. These guys, great power comes great responsibility. They all live by that creed. They've all lost like something in the same vein that will tantamount and lead to that. It just feels kind of like, here, for Spectacular Spider-Man walking up there, like one of the top Spider-Man walking up there, says, "I'm sorry, Miles, that's how it works." Like that, I don't know how I feel about that.
But here's the thing, Blue Dragon. This is where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
What is the phrase in the comics?
With great
power must come
also
great responsibility.
Yeah.
But so here's the question. We all know that each of the respective Spider-Mans have great power, great abilities, all that.
Yeah.
What does it mean for great responsibility?
Being the protection of the multiverse.
Yeah, because it's like that's I think where a lot of Spider-Man's like, well, am I being really? Because here's the thing, all of these Spider-Mans, like for example, Peter Parker in the comics, like in Amazing Fantasy issue 15, he specifically does not go after the robber because that's not his problem. He doesn't care. And in the Raimi movie, it's changed. The context is that these characters chose their self-interest, their insular life,
and it went badly for their loved ones.
And so for most of these spider people to agree to go along with what Miguel is doing, the logic and the philosophy is this: to be Spider-Man, you have to sacrifice, and all these Spider-Men, they have to sacrifice relationship. They have to accept that they have dysfunctional, dynamics with their loved ones. They have to accept that they lose out on job opportunities and growing in their profession because being Spider-Man takes first priority. And if you are making all these sacrifices, not to say that like a loved one sacrifice doesn't hurt you, if you made all these sacrifices and prioritize the well-being of others, why would you stop and balk at this?
Here's the thing. You're not wrong. It's kind of two things that occur to me. One, given the end of the movie, the answer to my question is like, I'm more like, there gotta be some Spider-Man who disagree with this, and we do have those Spider-Man who disagree with that at the end of it. So by that logic, I guess Miles kind of had to lead the charge on that. Though it's kind of hard to buy that none of them would have thought about like maybe someone's going to take issue with this.
No, I don't think it's said that I don't think there's anyone that has an issue with it, but it's probably, if you were to think about this, like not the grand, not to use the doctrine, the grand calculus, it's like these people have power and the great power, great responsibility is that they have to prioritize every people. Here's the thing: if it is known, the thing is for these minority Spider-Men, if they think, because here's the thing, is the disagreement. The disagreement is that it sounds messed up. It's
Yeah.
not a disagreement that Miguel is wrong, that it won't
Yeah.
happen scientifically. So if you're agreeing with Miguel's premise that these kind of events, if disrupted, can lead to the universe breaking, then you kind of are, for these minority Spider-Man disagree. It's like, well, aren't you kind of like telling yourself that you're being selfish to a certain degree? Because if you're prioritizing this one person, the universe gets messed up or gets or ends. So whatever time you have with one person will be finite because the universe ends, and either you survive or you survive with that one person, and then at the point it's like, well, you just sacrifice the entire universe for this one person. So are you really Spider-Man? And really about great power comes great responsibility if you're now responsible for the whole world. And sometimes being responsible for the whole world means that not a few people are sacrificed, but you have to weigh many. Like, right? Like, what like, what is there? Like, what makes, how is Spider-Man responsible if
Well,
he's prioritizing one person, a personal loved one, where the whole thing for Spider-Man, he's makes sacrifice along the way. Why is he now going to make this one sacrifice, especially if he loses the entire universe in the process?
okay, so all that works, and I'll admit now. No, thinking about it that way does, I think, help with that. But there's still two things. Okay,
Sure.
one, even we had like archivally in the first movie, but it feels like if we're ever gonna pull like at least in like not just pulling like a Cliff Robertson, but actually using that, if we're gonna use with great power comes great responsibility. But did I miss it? We didn't say that during any of this, right? I know
Like,
you're just using it as an example, but I'm just saying like it doesn't feel like that would have like really like cleared up like what the fundamental like this is why we're right like great power
I
comes
mean,
great.
I feel like the writers would make. I feel like they think that like people were to, they wanted to let people think for themselves. And also the thing is, it's like it's interesting that there's never a discussion of whether Miguel is actually right about the science of it, the causality.
Well, that
So
was the other thing I was about to get into.
yeah,
So the Great Paragraph was just saying I think might have made it a little bit more digestible and just kind of be like, oh, okay. But the here's the issue. I think there's a debate to be had that Miles is kind of bringing up, but we don't really have time because we have a really awesome chase scene to get to. Is that are these six can events like an exact science? Because the reason really that universe broke down for him was that he took the place of another guy. Okay, like that felt less can event related. That felt more like okay, so
also yeah, it's also it's like what does
it
it
feels like an ego move, doesn't it? It feels like Spider-Man is completely tied to the foundation of this universe, where it feels like that's a little. It's just a universe that has Spider-Man in it. I don't know if that means like the whole universe is going to deconstruct just because Spider-Man doesn't go the exact same life path that all the other Spider-Men go into, or at least to some degree or
I
variation
mean,
of.
it might be a thing where there's probably a higher power at play, like Madam Web or whatever is like
Yeah.
leading the web. So maybe Miguel, like maybe he doesn't actually have like a full understanding, and like the fact that he hit upon this like web of destiny, like it's kind of maybe the third, maybe Beyond Spider Verse is where Peter goes beyond the Spider Verse and sees like who made this whole universe. Maybe he sees God or whatever the equivalent of God is in this
Do you
universe,
think we're going to get Madam Web in the next movie?
or some version of Madam Web, right? Because the whole, because like in like the '90s Spider-Man show, when we do the whole Spider-Verse thing, like Madam Web is the one that like takes Christopher Daniel Barnes Peter Parker
If
Spider-Man.
we're going to bring him back, tying him into her might be really smart.
And also, like, I mean, considering, like, I think Madam Web is also a prominent part of the Spider Verse comics, right? With the whole
Yeah.
Web of Destiny. So, and I think it would be very interesting for Miles, like, basically, like, challenging a godly figure. It's like, what gives you the right to just make life or for all these trillions of lives throughout the multiverse be the way it is? And why does one person have to be the center of it? And maybe that's where you go. Maybe that's where the whole ending of Beyond Spider Verse is that in a kind of radical way, you go beyond the Spider Verse and the mechanics of it. You had to basically take Spider Man out of the equation, not like destroy or end Spider Man, but like make him not be the center of it. And
There
that's
is sorry. There
like,
is one other thing that occurs to me just now that you say that. So getting to the other big revelation of this movie that we have. It's a really cool revelation. Does bring up something I'm not saying it's a flaw in the movie. I'm saying something that I wonder if it's going to be brought up in the next one.
Cool.
is that we reveal the really cool detail that the Spot he mentioned earlier, then we confirmed it, like we fully explained what the ramifications are through the big train scene because there's always a big train scene in the best Spider-Man movies, as you probably noticed. The sorry it's basically that Miles, the spider that bit Miles, was from Earth 42.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know, I look back on this, by the way, it's really cool. Now, this, I have to wonder how much this was retroactive, and they just kind of like looked at this and they kind of got like the realization. Because if you notice, that spider is glitching because it's out of universe.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, and that makes me wonder, like, how much of this was planned? Because a lot of it feels like the majority of the film was like, okay, we might have some light concepts if we do come back, but this is pretty much a one shot. So the point is, seemingly they paid off the spider very well. The idea, look, this spider is pulled from another universe and it bites him, and we have a Spider-Man who wasn't supposed to exist in this universe because that spider doesn't correspond with this universe. Now, this does bring, I think Miles is going to have an argument for the next movie that, hey, if I wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man in this universe, that means my parents don't have to die. My Jefferson doesn't have to die.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if we're going to make that argument.
That would
Yeah,
be
but the thing
interesting.
is, like, what's the logical conclusion from Miles' argument? Then it's like, okay, his parents have to die, then he shouldn't be Spider-Man. Then someone has to be. Then there's no Spider-Man in this universe.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Maybe Spider-Man dies. Maybe it's the universe we filled in with a new guy.
And that also doesn't explain like the potential existence of Miles in the other universes too.
Well, no. Actually, here's the thing. What's like, I think Eric Voss had this theory about for Earth 42 is like the idea is that like that Miles was supposed to be. He thinks that Miles in that universe was supposed to be Spider-Man with that spider, but because
he never got bit, he took a different path.
Yeah. And actually, there's an image of where he's going through like the black and white recounts. There's an image of like a kid with braids, and I think the Eric's presumption is that's Miles, and that spider is like the 42 spider that could have bitten him, but this got sucked into like Earth 1610.
Okay,
it is kind of interesting that some of these other characters in their own universes have had encounters with a Miles Morales. So,
yep.
But this movie's kind of treating like this is the only Miles that became Spider-Man.
But also to address your point, Blue Dragon, I think I don't know in regard to the spider being from another universe was planned or not. I think definitely the reveal of Miles in a different universe becoming a bad guy like the Prowler. I think that was definitely an idea that came into fruition after the first one, because in like the Spider-Man, like in the first Spider-Man comic, when Peter Parker of Earth 616 crosses over, interacts with Miles of 1610, there's a cliffhanger at the end of the comic where Peter looks up, it's like, all right, who's Miles Morales in my universe? And there's like a shocked face, and there's no reveal. What is Miles Morales? And like they need sequel or whatever. Miles Morales in Earth 616 in the comics was like 90, I think slightly older than like Miles Morales in Earth 1610. And he actually became a criminal associated Kingpin, and then like was like running his criminal empire or whatnot. And so I definitely think that they took this like, all right, that's an interesting idea. Let's try to incorporate that and mix it with like the Prowler thing. And what's even crazier about it is like, like Hobby Brown is the one that like helps Miles get out of the web, and like is basically
I love that idea, by the way. I love the idea of Hobby Brown, who is one of the, when I heard that name, I was like, wait a minute, because I had no idea. Like Spider-Punk's the only thing I know about Spider-Punk is like he was in the game, he's like a skin in the games. That's all I really knew about that character. So finding out that, okay, we're doing Spider-Punk and we're making him Hobby Brown, we're making him the other Prowler, that's kind of cool.
In the comics,
how are you cooler under the mask? I was cool this whole time.
No. In the comics, it's like Hobby Brown. Like, yeah, the Hobby Brown was the original Prowler.
Yeah.
And the Spider-Bug comic, it is Hobby Brown, but he's like a African American punk guy, whereas in the movie he's African British because of the actor Dana Kaluuya. But what's interesting is that like Hobby Brown him being the original iteration of the Prowler helps Miles to escape and inadvertently go to a universe where Miles is the Prowler.
Trippy.
How are you? I still love the whole interaction. I just love Hobie overall.
I just thought of this. Oh, not that I think someone pointed this out, but it's like you remember how like Miles is like when the Spider Sense shows up, it's like green and purple.
Yeah.
What's the color scheme of the Prowler?
Yeah, green and purple.
Yeah, that's also the color of the hood he puts on.
Yeah, no, I love that detail. I picked up on that. The whole it's a green and purple. Honestly, it was twofold because one, you're right, it's the Prowler, but it's also like a lot of the prominent colors in Spider-Man are green and purple, mainly green.
I mean, literally, I said out loud when I was when the other Prowler in the universe was talking like Miles is the Prowler, and then when he took off, I was like, I knew it.
I love for me when I was go on.
But also think of it this way: like, what color combination leads to purple?
That's good.
Yeah.
Cool. I love the reveal in the theater. It's just one of those great moments where it's one of those great movie moments where collectively as an audience, you're a beat ahead of like the character in the film, where you're realizing that he's in the wrong universe. There's a lot of that plays.
Like you kind of realize, okay, maybe you think that Rio's a little bit out of touch, that she doesn't.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, what is happening? And you realize, like, oh.
But then when he starts glitching, it's like, oh no, it's like he didn't go to his own universe.
But it's also, if you look at like when Miles in his room is completely different than his
it's like one of those things. If you like with an eagle eye, he's like, wait a minute, this isn't. It's like Marty McFly. Are there bars on the windows at Marty's house?
Yeah, and like when Aaron comes in and notices, hey, what happened to your braids? It's like, oh, this is it's kind of funny, but also cool to like. In having different like variants of like a same character, you always make sure to have like a visual difference with like different hairstyle or different facial hair.
And I love how they they didn't reveal the fact that Mahershala Ali returned for the movie.
Well, it makes sense. Remember him at Aaron Davis, you want him to sound the same.
I know, but like I said, they didn't reveal it in like the pre-releases. Like they didn't reveal that he had returned.
No, that's a fair point. Also, speaking
of course, that would have like spoiled a massive twist of the movie.
Yeah, speaking of which, though, speaking of Prowlers, again, Donald Glover showed up as the Prowler in the classic costume in the MCU.
In live action.
I know, that was awesome.
They didn't animate him. He was still live action in the animated universe.
Love it. But again, the builds to a theory. There is a theory that in the next movie, perhaps we will see, even if it's like for a brief gag or something, we will see Miles stumble into the MCU briefly, and he will be live action.
What's interesting in regards to that is like one, Hobie Brown is the one that catches him. Hobie Brown in the comics was the original Prowler, so that's kind of a neat meta thing. And two, considering his hairstyle and like his facial hair. Could one make the argument that's even the same Aaron Davis from like MCU Spider-Man Homecoming, or it's a different Aaron Davis from a different universe?
I mean, that's a fair point. It's just the question of I would argue that's the same. My initial thought was that's the same one, but that's just like years down the line, which we checked in with since 2017. From
because the characters have different hairstyles and facial hair.
So that's what I'm saying. That was my assumption.
17?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure 17. Yeah,
Spider-Verse came out in 18.
No, not Spider-Verse. Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, so when Spider-Man, we saw Aaron Davis, the Donald Glover version of Aaron Davis introduced like the beginnings of wherever he's going. That was 2017, so presumably within like the blip and all the years they kind of led up to this. So 2018, then add 5 years, and then however many years since in Phase 4. Prowler.
All right.
Yeah, debatably, we don't know. But then again, it's one of those things where it could be like all the variants of Kang. You never know. Like, it's like, which universe we're pulling from these days. Speaking of, also another thing with the MCU, I love that for a moment, as one of our commenters pointed out, the whole Loki and Sylvie are low-key catalyst in this as well. we saw the branch timeline. We saw that little when we were doing like the really cool display when Miguel was laying out like the whole canon events thing. Is like we saw essentially the little branch timeline thing, and then we expanded the view to the Spider-Verse.
It's not a tree anymore; it's a web.
Yeah.
It's like, can we just take a moment like to discuss like all the variations of Spider-Man we see at the
There's
society?
so many cool ones.
I mean, like just in this picture alone, you actually see a lot of them in the movie. Like, obviously, you did see the game Spider-Man from which the movie explicitly even called Insomniac Spider-Man.
we have Ben Reilly Spider-Man, who's voiced by.
Go on now. Who's he voiced by?
Andy Samberg.
Oh, nice.
Andy Samberg making fun of 90s Spider-Man too, which is making fun of like the 90s era Clone Saga of Spider-Man. So,
it's like I stare over at the wall. That one's normal. The other wall, that one's normal.
What's funny is that Jorma Tacone, he voiced Norman Osborn, Green Goblin in Into the Spider-Verse, and the 60s Spider-Man. In this, he voices Vulture. And those two, alongside Akiva Schaffer, make up the Lonely Island crew. So it'd be kind of cool in Beyond Spider-Verse if like Akiva Schaffer also made a vocal cameo, and that's the Lonely Island reunion.
Akiva Schaffer also did Chip and Dale.
Yeah.
And of course, like we see the bombastic. When I saw the Bagman, I was like, "Hey, it's bombastic Bagman."
Yep. Let's see. I had there's like the cowboy Spider-Man,
Spider
horse,
and the horse. They don't know if it's a T-Rex, which is awesome. Which was just like.
Awesome. I want you guys to tell me if I'm crazy now because I thought I saw something really funny. I'm pretty sure we had the Spider-Mobile, but the Spider-Mobile was alive.
And the Spider-Mobile, his name was Peter Parker. which was just a lame but hilarious.
I kind of wish it was. Called, I mean, it's a fun gag. I would love if it was called Peter Parker.
No. That's Peter Parker, as in he's a car that parks.
Yeah.
I mean, his name is literally Peter Parked Car.
Yep.
I mean, it literally says that in like the editor box.
No. I was gonna say Peter Corker.
Oh god! All right. Let's see.
They said you see the T-Rex, which I don't know if he already existed before. Or
my crazy did that T-Rex have like little web shooters on its little arms?
It did.
What's crazy? I find this out in the breakdown was that when he does there's like the twip, it's like T hyphen W type, like T-Rex, so the T-whip.
That's really cute.
Yeah, I did notice that. That was great.
Let's see. We had Spectacular. We gave him a line.
We had Spider Cap. Basically you could like freeze frame it and try and find like every single Spider-Man.
Sure. Our returning favorites are at the very end.
It's like
in the poster,
and of course, like it was kind of a shame we didn't see we did see Penny briefly in like the redesigned Spider, which looks more accurately to the comics.
Well,
but fortunately, we didn't see like Spider-Man Noir or Spider-Ham until
the very end.
Which is when I saw them, I was like, they're coming back.
Yeah, it's nice.
I like they were sorely missed in this movie.
But again, it was crowded. There's a lot of Spider-Man. Plus, it would have made sense for them to attack him.
Yeah, I know, but they could have been like part of the whole questioning part of the side of things. Like, but seeing like the original gang back together, it's like they're coming back for the third movie.
Speaking of original returning ones, Peter B. Parker with little Mayday Parker, obviously one of my favorite things in this movie that I seeing like he actually he patched things up and they had the kid and obviously it's in tribute to Miles, which we called out really nicely, and the fact that he's the mentor and kind of the fact that Mayday is an actual character who's like his actual daughter from comic Spider Girl.
And also it's a tribute to his Aunt May, who in Peter's B universe is dead. So
died, yes.
Yeah.
Mayday, yes. Mm-hmm. She was just so precious, and like apparently according to like one of the original trailers and in concept art, she had heterochromia.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
But I think it was like either in concept art, but they got rid of that.
Oh.
They gave her just regular blue eyes.
Okay.
which is a shame. Really. I mean, I'm not the one that's like claiming like, oh, we need representation for heterochromia or anything like that.
I mean, is there really like a big groundswell of support for heterochromia? Is it really like a big movement?
I mean,
Like,
well,
we
it's
need
just more like
two-colored
it's
eyes.
just more like some people would have liked to see it.
I think is heterochromia, is it to my understanding that heterochromia is like a common genetic trait among twins or whatever?
I mean,
I don't know about twins.
I don't think it's necessarily like a twin thing because there are people, they're like singular babies and people that are born with heterochromia. Like one of my dogs growing up had heterochromia. So I had a Dalmatian that had two different colored eyes. It's like so I was like so.
I also think in like real life, it's like they got rid of the idea because they didn't want to give the animators too much work that they already did. Because
all right, guys, in this whole chase, every time we see the little girl, we're gonna give her two guys. That's why we're putting a little mask on her. Never mind, we don't do that. We don't do that at all. We're all good, guys.
That actually makes sense.
like her little mask was so adorable.
It was.
Like I love little Mayday Parker. She was so cute.
Yep.
Like and he said Peter B such a good dad to her.
That's true. So
it's like I didn't take her to another fight because I said I wouldn't.
I love how like he has essentially kind of like a different outfit as compared to the first, because the first one it's like the Spider-Man outfit on the top and then sweatpants at the bottom, and then this it's like he's wearing the Spider-Man outfit but he has like a
pink robe on.
Pink robe on,
and the baby jumper and like the little baby holder thing.
If I remember correctly, wasn't he also wearing slippers?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like well, you gotta be comfortable. I mean, he's always chasing after his daughter who has spider powers.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he is a middle-aged man, so like he's just like he's just not.
Jake Johnson continues to knock it out of the park as Peter.
He does flawless casting.
I love his interactions with the Mary Jane in his universe, and Mary Jane like making sports analogies. Like, hey, that was a sports analogy. It's like I watch sports.
It's like you were such a nerd. Like, yeah, I know, but I've watched sports. I love that. It's like, never mind. But basically, yeah, it's like I'm thinking of interactions. I love when he was like talking with Miles in the fan chamber. It's like I named it. It's like I had her because of you. All right.
Yeah, it really is. It's a really sweet scene. The fact that it's nice that he was helping him out, but then of course you have like the thing where until the next movie, it seems like they still need to patch some stuff up because while he was in support of him, Miles did feel really betrayed by his friends, and he still hasn't been able to really kind of like mend that fence yet because his friends didn't. They learned after the Spider Society formed, they didn't visit him, they didn't let him know about all this stuff, and mainly the biggest thing being the whole like you weren't supposed to be Spider-Man. We had that really it's a great scene. Where again, Miguel O'Hara, while not wrong, he is really brutal when he's like saying you weren't supposed to be Spider-Man, which again is like the big cultural paradigm with like all the critics who've ever criticized Miles Morales, just like calling him out, and then we have this great kind of response to that, like what I am Spider-Man.
Which is kind of hypocritical in a sense because like Miguel O'Hara is like, but the thing is, although it probably defense for Miguel is like one. He's like far in the future. Two, in the comics, he was like forced against his will to get Spider-Man powers because he had like an addiction.
And we saw that. That's why he injected himself with that thing, and he has like the
and I think he's
which I think will be more explored in the next movie, most likely.
Yeah, and he's got like the vampire fangs, and it like do y'all remember when he was about to like bite into Vulture, and then he was stopped or was interrupted.
He's like. You don't really look like a good guy. He's like, yeah, shut up.
Well, there's not. Apparently, I did a little. I have a few of the Spider-Man 29 comics, but I never fully got into them. What I can tell you is that he does have like the teeth are not. He's not full on vampire. They're fangs, like spider fangs.
He has spider fangs, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's got like the red eyes, and it's like, man, he's in terms of the Spider-Man, he's got not the best. It's not. He's got the best luck or qualities of the other Spider people, and I think that's part of what makes him such a great villain, just because
he's the most serious of all the Spider people.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it is because he's like, which is kind of, I think someone made a criticism that like Nueva York doesn't look like a dystopian like cyberpunk future, but it's actually interesting when you go into like when Miles goes into the very bottom of the city, it looks like how you expect a cyberpunk city to look. So
It's
it is kind of
I mean, it's basically straight out of a Blade Runner.
no, but I
Or
think it's like
actually, Metropolis would probably be a better comparison.
Yeah,
yeah,
like Superman the animated series
No, no, like no,
Metropolis.
no, no, like no, like literally the movie Metropolis.
Uh,
But anyway, it's like when it's like Miguel, this isn't what we talked about. That's like when the revelation it really hit Miles.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So here's something really interesting with Miguel O'Hara I do want to hit on is that in this movie I like that they're especially thinking about it after watching is that I like there are two parallels to one to Miles and one to Peter B. Parker in regards to Miguel O'Hara. One in that the the revelation of with the revelation we have about Miles and the fact that he kind of like the spider kind of jumped dimensions and kind of it made him kind of like this anomaly of a Spider-Man. The fact that Miguel O'Hara again, what he did, in taking the place of of his dead doppelganger is not the right word, but his kind of like counterpart. I love so that kind of puts him in parallel to the Miles story, which surely we'll kind of get into more in the next movie. Just the fact that it's like, hey, I did this, I kind of broke this rule first, and you're kind of like following in my footsteps in that regards. They have some stuff in common, despite them being really kind of against each other in this movie. The other thing too is I love how subtle it is. Miguel O'Hara, when Mayday's crawling all over him and everything, the fact that he had a daughter, the fact that he likes kids, and the fact that despite him being so serious there and then it's like being very ill timed, he's still that's you get a sense that's why he tolerates Peter B. Parker because of the kid.
and unlike Miles, he actually knows how to hold a baby properly, or
Yeah,
more proper than Miles.
true. That is also that is
It's like,
also true.
it's like I want you to hold the baby.
Hold the baby will help. It'll make it feel better.
I mean, and to be fair, holding it, I think it actually does help Miles for a little bit.
Yep. Also, a spider bite. She saves the day too when we have this really great thing. We're trying to get to the get home machine, which I think is what they nickname it.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy looking.
Yeah, it is
And
like the sentient organic spider creature thing.
another continuation of the home being the
Yeah,
home field, yeah.
yeah. Well, home call out. But yeah, like so Spider Bite, she was kind of cool, and I love how she's on the side of helping Miles, meeting him, and I think there was a little bit of like kind of a spiral, kind of a spiraling sort of thing with those two.
Like when she like pushed to reboot yes or no. It's like
She didn't hit it. She didn't hit yes. Saved his bacon.
yep. I mean,
Well,
well,
it initially saved his bacon.
we thought it saved his bacon.
We thought it did, yeah.
Like, and to be fair, it's not really her fault that he got sent to the
Yeah,
wrong.
she did, but hey, it wasn't. She didn't do anything wrong there. Okay, he jumped in that machine without realizing. Like Miles, did you listen to the man's story? Okay, it's gonna lock into your DNA. But then again, he had to fight like all the Spider-Men across all the multiverses to get home. So I don't blame him for like maybe like jumping the gun a little on that. I couldn't do it.
What's interesting is that like I kind of wish a minor quibble about the whole like get home thing for Miles. I wish we didn't see what universe Earth 42,
You're right.
because
Well, that's the thing. It's a little clue though that does like it's like if it's the sharp-eyed viewer they will see that, but in the theater no one picked up on that. It was I don't know. I think it's like a little. I think it's small enough that it's not gonna distract. I think it's like it's there if you're paying attention. Like Miles should have in that moment, but he didn't get it. Oh,
I feel like the clue. I feel like you could have done that still without showing the number, because it's like You could
I
have
mean,
just
you're
had
right. We could have.
because I feel like you could have a character like, wait, this doesn't make sense at all, and then and then it's not elaborated, and then you get the reveals of like, oh, I understand why this doesn't make sense for them. Because it's like if they see Earth 40. Here's the thing. Well, actually, this is where the question is. It's like, wouldn't the system not keep track of like which universe, like it wouldn't it? Like, that's the thing. It's like, how do they not
Well,
know?
remember, Miles has never been there before. He's not on file.
No, but like if you're
Well,
inputting,
remember,
it's
it
like,
did say. I mean, the thing is, it's like I said, dimensional signature detected.
Yeah, they're
Like,
key. They're key into the DNA of the Spider-Man.
yeah, not
To the
necessarily.
spiders, the spiders really, not even the men. It's the spiders that bit them. That's how they know.
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
but that's the thing. It's like if you like, I wonder, did they just they assume that he went to the universe? They didn't check like the machine to see like because I
Oh,
guess
no,
that's
I see what you're saying now. I get it now. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
because they probably like I assume the machine probably keeps a record or like it's like, oh, look at what was the most recent like destinations.
That's a fair point. I mean, we did pull we pulled an interesting switcheroo, but then again, we confirmed it with Gwen when she took out Scarlet Spider. That we had that great almost like Silence of the Lambs misdirect in terms like we thought Gwen was outside the room where Miles is having his big heart to heart moment there. In reality, was not the case.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of was a misdirect in the editing. It was of course a brilliant misdirect in the editing, but yeah, you're right. They probably should check the record. I mean, there's a slim chance. I mean, look, there's a slim chance Spider Bite might have been covering his tracks a little on that. So and she is on the side of our guys at the end of the movie.
That's true.
Team
That's
Miles.
true.
So that's the only logical explanation. But then again, I think it might have been a whole for example, in the first movie, I think I forget if it was Ramsey's kid or not. Maybe it was Lord Miller. One of them told their father who worked on the movie. Like one of the kids told their father who worked on the movie. Wait a minute. I love this movie, but something's wrong. Miles would never fit in the Peter Parker's costume. And then I forget if this actually was like something that was considered, or they just came up with something on the spot. Well, Aunt May probably just took it in for him before he put on the suit. It's like one of those things where it's like there's a like
considering like Aunt May is like has like the like as an older woman, she probably knows how to like sew a costume. She probably could just like. And they have advanced like the spider cave is super advanced. They probably have like when they go into like Tom Holland Peter's spider suit generator thing, like to make. I don't think that's like a.
No, I'm just saying it's like a funny example of like the kid pointed something out that they didn't really like. Oh, I didn't think anyone was.
But
gonna catch that.
also, I'll say this. I prefer the costume that Miles has in the Spider-Verse over Across the Spider-Verse. I think it's a little too like sparse. Like the red line just kind of.
Did you not like the red lines down the side?
I don't know. It just kind of makes this costume feel really like it's just all black, and you don't really get much of the red. I feel like if you compare the two costumes, like the red and black are a little bit more well balanced in the first movie. For the first movie costumes compared to Across the Spider-Verse.
Something's occurred to me with. I've always felt this way, but it really occurred to me in this movie because given we kind of play with Miles' design a little bit when we go to the last one, go to Earth 42.
Mm-hmm.
I still wish in the comics it's gonna be a really dumb quibble, but it feels like I think it feels like more people would check into Miles Morales stuff if his design reflected like had the big hair that Miles has, or at the very least if he didn't have like the shaved down kind of hairstyle that he has in like the game and in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very weird quibble, I know, but it just feels
Well,
like I'll tell you why.
Okay.
No, go
sure.
on. Well, sorry. What I was going to get is that for my theory is that I think the reason, and I forget what the age difference is. I think in the comic I could have sworn when he was introduced, I heard like in the trade somewhere it was like, oh, we introduced like 11-year-old Spider-Man versus like I think he's probably
Miles,
like 14.
when he starts as Spider-Man in Earth 1610, the Ultimate Comics, he's 13.
Okay, so it's 13. Not okay.
Yeah.
So regardless, the shaved down hairstyle always it's like a thing that we're using to accentuate like the youth, where it's like a disconnect from where we're used to with Peter Parker. And I think maybe that's the thing where it feels like less teenager, more just kid.
Which is interesting because
which is what they also adopted for the. Which is what they also adopted for the games too.
It's done.
I have a theory. So I think in the third movie, he might add the actual like comic book accurate suit because in the comics it's like webbing on like the top half like red
Mhm.
and then it's now that and then maybe like for Miles to evade detection he shaves his hair to look like how he looks in the comics
Hmm.
or
It's gonna
and
be weird.
or here's another thing, it'd be cool for like his final suit in Beyond the Spider-Verse to be like the it's like black but with purple highlights like Joker's outfit in Return of the Joker because he's taking part of the Prowler this aesthetic and design into his Spider-Man costume. So it's
No, I
black,
know you're
purple, and
talking. You're
red.
talking about the purple sheen from the Joker's
Yes,
black
yes.
suit.
Have that
Yeah,
with the red Spider-Man spider logo in the front.
I mean that'd be kind of interesting, but I don't know. We have to see. It'd be a question of logic wise. Why would he want to evoke the Prowler?
Because maybe it could be a thing where I that's the thing I kind of want. I'm very curious if maybe Miles could like instead of just fighting his like evil doppelganger, because I think that's the expectation, right? He could so much just reach to him and maybe help him to get over his loss in a way in which he can then still be the Prowler, but be more of the anti-hero Prowler rather than the villainous Prowler.
That's
And
not a
then
bad
that could
idea.
because then that Miles they can just throw back to Miguel's like, hey, if I could convince and make the guy who was supposed to be Spider-Man still be heroic, even if he's not Spider-Man, he's like the Prowler of all people, then our fate is not set in stone. And I
There
think
you
that
go.
could be, yeah. And then that point, because Miguel is so fixated that, like, this happens this way and you change, all this happens. There's no opportunity for things to get back to the way we were or be somewhere where it's tolerable or better or good. And if Miles can do that, I think that gives us a lot of Spider people to reconsider if I have this great power, why can't I use it to just change and bring people to the light that were lost in the dark and whatnot. And then that gives them, I think Miles will then help these spider people to go beyond the Spider-Verse metaphorically. It's like, hey, we can go beyond this paradigm and be like individual agents. We have choice, and that could probably free them to be better heroes in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, just to get in there before we kind of like ramp down here. Again, the big Back to the Future 2 twist of it all. Again, I already mentioned kind of the reveal of it all, but it's the fact that we it's so cool that we the way that he encountered Peter B. Parker, like he's like tied. He's in Uncle Aaron's apartment, and
Mm.
he's tied to the punching bag, and then we just kind of turn around and we think like, okay, he's gonna have to convince Uncle Aaron, but in reality, it's like it's Miles, and we just have this great like tense thing where he's playing a really dour, really serious, and really kind of like almost Killmonger esque from Black Panther, where he is like, hey, no, that's not how this works, and it's like he's a fight's about to break out, and we're hyping up the tension there. Where yeah, it's probably going to be still him trying to convince him, like you said, Rohit. But I'm saying initially, it's probably going to be a little fight going on.
Yeah. Now, what's fun is that for Miles Morales in Earth 42, he's voiced by Jarrell Jerome.
Mhm.
He's been this relatively like up and coming. Like his big thing was that he was one of the five Central Park Five. He played one of the Central Park Five in the Netflix show When They See Us.
Mhm.
And for a long while, he's been like a considerable fan cast for a live action Miles Morales because he's Afro Latino, and so for him to voice a
Huh.
Miles Morales variant is like, oh, that's pretty cool for it to come somewhat full circle in a way.
I got to be honest. I assume that was also Shamik Moore.
No, that's it's a different voice actor.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, it's I kind of wonder why, but then again, we have a whole bunch of different variants of Spider-Man. That makes sense, though. That's cool.
Well, because I think of it like for Peter Parker, both Peter P. Parker and regular Peter Parker, they look the same beyond just a different hair color, and they're voiced by two different people.
No, no, no. I mean, that again, I'm saying it's Miles, though, not Peter. That's the difference. But sure, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That's fine, though. That makes sense. I just kind of took a minute there, just kind of like catch up. Like, okay, that could be a different guy. Okay, it's
Yeah.
but still, I mean, it's for the movie. How the movie ends is what you were saying at the very beginning of this, right? Is that yes, I recognize it's not a complete story, but I went in knowing it was likely not going to be a complete story and going to be a cliffhanger. But you do raise a good point that it is going to. in comparing it to something like Infinity War in Endgame and how that works, is that Infinity War does have a complete story in that we end on a downbeat that has major ramifications, and it's more Empire Strikes Back than is Back to the Future 2. One could argue,
Mhm.
and it's a sort of thing where a lot of people made the argument, it's Thanos' movie, and you're going to be hard pressed to find many arguments against that. And the way that works is like, okay, so we're following this character's progression, his arc there. It is a little unfinished the way we do it here. I'm not going to lie, it is a little unfinished. But again, I think it's just kind of I have to blame the marketing with the whole part one, part two thing just kind of going by the wayside. What?
But the argument that would be the best counter argument to my point was that Eric made this point. Eric Voss, and he made this point when he did a breakdown of this movie, was that the movie bookends with Gwen talking about Miles and Gwen saying, "Hey, I'm going to find Miles." So it is the ending. But the thing is, it's kind of well, Miles is a big part of this movie. It's really Gwen's movie. She starts the movie and she ends the movie. So it is kind of a complete movie. We're looking from Gwen's because she's doing this storytelling. Hey, let's just start something different. So it's kind of Gwen telling Miles' story. And his theory was that like she's telling Miles' story to the other Spider characters to rally them to join her side to save Miles.
Oh,
Which looked in that lens, that kind of makes me interested to see if Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to be converging of those two focus points of Miles and Gwen being more dual to antagonist rather than like Miles being a big, part and it's through Gwen's lens. Could it be that it'll be Miles is going to be telling like Gwen's story in Beyond Spider-Verse, or maybe Miguel or Peter B. Parker like are going to be the the bookends of this movie. It's very it opens up a lot of possibilities in terms of like how does the third movie be structured.
Okay. All right, so yeah, we gather the team together, and they're going to help Miles, and we're looking forward to it. And then we have to wait till next year.
And of course, like the team features some returning guest stars who were returning people who were sorely missing from this movie.
Yep, India, Noir, Ham.
But like we were. Hopefully, that means like. And to be fair, Nick Cage did say he wasn't returning for this movie. That doesn't mean he. I guess that returning for this movie, I guess he didn't necessarily say he wasn't appearing in the third one.
Yeah, technicalities, kids.
Like so, I mean, hopefully that means like him, Mulaney, Chemical Glenn, and everyone else will be returning for Beyond Spider-Verse.
Yeah, they are.
I can't imagine Mulaney being able to, because like he went into rehab for a while. So
but he's still doing stand up, bro. He just did a stand special.
Netflix, no, but I wonder, would he have time to do like voice acting for it if he was busy doing rehab and then going on tour to do his like to build up for his.
Remember, he also did Chip and Dale, so
that's true. But wasn't that before he went into rehab? Because
it was
animation, right?
I didn't even know he went into rehab. But
I don't.
No, he went.
Regardless of when he did, I'm looking at something like Puss in Boots, for example. It's like any way you slice it. I mean, he still could like, even if he were on the road going to tour or anything, he could still like record remotely.
I mean, virtual recording does exist. I mean, people have like recorded parts for very different for.
Because every time I see the behind the scenes, I can't tell you if I think Puss in Boots was recorded remotely. So based on that, I think
technically, from what I heard in this movie, like Haley Steinfeld recorded some of her dialogue in a closet.
There you go.
If I'm remembering that correctly, so. I mean,
she's not the first to do that, but yeah, it's kind of a thing that has happened during the pandemic.
Yeah,
people. Yeah.
I guess that's a true point.
So I was like, so it's not so. So I mean, if he was obviously well enough, I mean, I don't think it'd rule out the possibility of John Mulaney returning as Spider-Ham. We actually have another commenter now, Spider John Kelly. What are the chances that there's going to be any sort of crossover with the Madam Web movie Beyond Spider-Verse next year?
Okay, now that is the question of I really hope we don't. I hope we go for like Helen Mirren instead of Dakota Johnson to play Madam Web.
It's not likely.
I mean, it's the animated one though.
No.
We don't need, we don't need Dakota
Oh,
Johnson.
like you want like if there's like Spider-Man variants, it could be like Madam Web variants.
I don't need.
I-
Here's the yes, but I don't need Madam Web variants. All I need is I just don't want the young Dakota Johnson to play Madam Web in our Spider-Verse movie.
You specifically mentioned with the live action cameos.
Oh. Well, I mean, if they're smart, they won't. If they're smart, they'll stick with the animated.
It'd
Madam
be
Web.
kind of cool if like there was like a spider god or like like a godly being that was just like a spider that could.
Well,
talk
there
to,
was
like-
one in the turn. There was one in the Broadway show.
Oh god.
That'd be hilarious if that was just like. No, but really think of it this way. It's kind. I think back to like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, how did all the benders learn their bending from animals? And if like the web of life, like a spider has to be the one that weaves the web of life and destiny. So it'd be kind of cool for like a god to be perceived.
I
mean,
an actual spider god does exist in mythology, Arachne and everything, which is actually what they used in Turn Off the Dark.
yeah, and also like in African myth there's like Anansi or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that,
so like
I think that was even briefly touched upon in Gargoyles. I think.
Yeah. And also Static Shock. So there's a.
Like so a spider god really isn't too out of the. I mean, I think it'd be out of place for this, but for
is it really?
Because this is like this is more based in like sci-fi rather than mythology. But
I mean, Spider-Man did delve into mythology and fantasy with the whole spider totem thing in the early to mid 2000s. So
okay, I mean that just
even the whole Ezekiel thing, right?
Yeah, and Ezekiel is in this movie. He's the psychiatrist or the therapist guy.
Wait a minute. I don't know if that's like you.
No, he's a therapist because in The Office, the breakdown showed that there's a diploma for Ditko University, and the name under it is Ezekiel Sims.
So wait, so he's wearing a Spider-Man mask then?
Yes, and he's wearing a suit. So yeah, in this image I'm seeing with all this different Spider-Man.
Wait, so that's him. That's it. That's Ezekiel right behind Spectacular Spider-Man. Is what you're saying right now?
Yes.
Huh.
And so he's the guy that's like, let me guess, he died.
Yes.
It'd be kind of interesting if he. Did not have. If he like the only Spider-Man without a mask on.
It's like Spider John Kelling seems to confirm therapist Spider-Man is Ezekiel.
Really? Okay, I'm impressed. I didn't catch that because again he has a mask on. That's why I didn't catch that it was Ezekiel.
Yeah.
So technically spider gods do exist within.
Yeah, and also think of how Miguel's like the way Miguel's described it is like it's not really a scientific explanation, right? The whole canon events because you like Blue Dragon rightfully had this. It's like how does that track? Because like for us in terms of our understanding of science, it's like there's not really a scientific basis for like absolute events and like the universe and multiverse and all that stuff. But in a lot of creation myths, it's like with like the Norn gods in Norse mythology and the fates in Greek mythology, there's always like set patterns or set ways in which events unfold. So I think there is some basis for like an actual godlike figure to be weaving this web of life and destiny.
I'm just saying. I think if they were going down that road, they probably would have at least hinted at it in this movie. But I don't didn't catch that anyway. So I honestly don't think they're going to explore that in Beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't. I just think when it says Beyond the Spider-Verse, like, okay, how do you go beyond it? Like, because it's like, do you go to some like heaven, or is it just more metaphorical? You go beyond our understanding and confines of what it is to be a Spider-Man in a universe. So it could be more metaphorical than literal.
Plus, it also makes a catchy title.
Well, I mean, it's a catchy title, but there has to be some like meaning beyond, like meaning. I'm sorry to use beyond a lot, but it's like
that's what's funny. I think I forget if I called Beyond or not as the title for the next one.
I mean, it is a logical progression. I mean, into, across, beyond.
Because I know here's the thing. I think I pitched Beyond, then you pitched Escape, which I thought was better. Rohith.
Escape the Spider-Verse, which actually kind of makes sense for this movie.
Wait, wow, I did not remember ever saying that.
I'm pretty sure it was you. I think you, yeah. What?
Escape the Spider-Verse actually kind of makes sense for the finale of this movie.
Yeah. That's the thing. I could have sworn I pitched Beyond and then you pitched Escape.
Did I say escape or end of the Spider-Verse?
No, you pitched. I remember very distinctly. Whoever, assuming it was you, Rohith, which I'm fairly certain it was, you pitched Escape.
What's next? Beneath the Spider-Verse?
Or, I mean, actually, in Marvel Comics, there's like the one below. I mean, you could go or above the Spider-Verse. Maybe that's where the Spider-God comes in.
I was
We can't go with above the spiders.
I was making a Planet of the Apes joke.
Yeah.
Beneath the Planet of the Apes, it's like, what's next? Beyond, like, beneath the Spider-Verse?
So, it could be like end of the Spider-Verse, and maybe you can have rebirth of the Spider-Verse. Well, actually, no, because of the way the titles are, it's like verb.
John Kelling has a good idea.
You see?
Down the block of the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way the titles are done. It's like verb, the Spider-Verse.
Into,
or
across, beyond.
Or not a verb, but it's like I'm trying to think it's
adjective, like adverb or adjective, I guess.
Or Jaren, hold on, what kind? Let me now it's good. I'm gonna look it up. Just y'all,
I mean, this is a big movie to talk about in several ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably going to be another Oscar winner if you think about this one. I mean, depending on like how well like Elemental does and what Disney Animation is doing this year. So.
Well, right now it's right now the big thing we're gonna have to combat is that every anime movie going forward right now is going to be compared to how well it stacks up against Across Spider-Verse. So competition's going to be stiff.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a preposition.
Preposition.
There's like about. So above is a preposition. After the Spider-Verse, against, along, among the Spider-Verse,
between the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, there's like about, above, across, after, against, along, among, around, before, behind, between, beyond, despite. Yeah, okay, yeah. I think it's like more play. Yeah, okay. I think the preposition, the Spider-Verse, there's just like, I think there's nothing more after beyond besides the behind or between or among.
Among the Spider-Verse. Or it's like John Killing also. Spider-Geddon.
Ooh.
If I remember, isn't Spider-Geddon the one where we have like all of New York turn into like they all become mutated like Spider-Man?
No, that's Spider Island.
Spider Island, right. Forget what Spider-Geddon is.
It's Armageddon, but with
But I get what the title meant.
I'm sorry.
It's Armageddon, but with spiders.
Here's what it is. No, here's what it is. It's actually everyone getting like the 6-armed Spider-Man. Of all the Spider-Verse, they all just get 6 arms.
It's like it's Spider-Man, just regular Spider-Man's there. It's like, hey, wait a minute. Like, yep, big change.
That was another one that was missing, the multi-armed Spider-Man.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, they might be leaning into that with Miguel.
Yeah. I think so.
This is a big movie.
Also, I have one major quibble or plot hole thing. So, like, when Miguel's talking about like canon events, he talks about ASM 90, where it's like a police captain who's an ally to Spider-Man dies in saving a child from rubble after a battle between Spider-Man and his arch enemy. And it's like, okay, in that comic is Spider-Man versus Doc Ock. Doc Ock is considered one of the top 3 arch enemies alongside Venom and Green Goblin. Here's the thing. It makes sense for Miles. All right, he's gonna lose his dad to like Spot, who's his self-proclaimed arch enemy, and Miles has a personal connection with Spot to create him. All that stuff that makes sense.
Basically, the whole Batman 89 thing. You created me.
But here's the thing. No, this is what I want to make points. Like, okay, if Miles was supposed to save Inspector Singh, Karan was what losing. Karan isn't like the Spot isn't like Spider-Man India's arch enemy. He's just like there because he's just traveling throughout the multiverse, right?
Well, I mean, look, Rohit, the simple explanation is that again, it's not literally. It has to be like a. I think broadly, it's more of a villain battle results in this,
Okay,
not
just the
really the
way
whole like.
Miguel worded that, because here's the thing that kind of like kind of perked my eyebrows. Like, wait, you showed the archival footage of like Andrew Garfield, Peter Parker, Spider-Man holding onto Captain Stacy. It's like, well, in that movie, didn't save a kid from rubble. He just got like a pipe went through him or something like that, and he
Well,
was
no,
and it
no,
was
no,
the
not a pipe. The lizard just gutted him.
yeah gutted him, and it was and he wasn't and the lizard being the arch enemy of Andrew Garfield Spider-Man doesn't seem like
Okay, look, it's
uh
not a perfect. You're not wrong in that. In terms of like the red shirt, see, it's less the villain issue. It's more the red shirt issue. You're right. That one is the. It's so funny. The
I
one that we dedicated the footage to was the one that did not have the kid with the red shirt.
I think for me it's just like the way Miguel worded that. It's like, okay, is all of that supposed to be the canon event, or just the idea of like a police captain is like of Spider-Man
Police
dies,
captain dies in a villain battle. That's the crux of it.
Yeah.
But the red
Okay.
thing was purely an aesthetic thing, just for that cool black and white montage. And basically, what's going to
Okay.
happen is in Beyond Spiders, we're going to have a sequence in which we're going to have Jefferson, Davis, and/or Morales. Jefferson will be seeing a kid in a red shirt in peril. It's going to be a huge, awesome sequence in that movie. We're going to be on the edge of our seats wondering, is Miles going to make it? What's he going to do? Is he going to let him do it on his own? Is he going to save
No,
him?
how I Met Your Mother. No, how excuse me. How it should have ended. It'd
How I
be
Let Your
like
Father Die. That's the new spinoff.
no. It's like how it should have ended. We'll have Jefferson like look at the kid
Mm-hmm.
and contemplate it and just and mimicking the
Walk the
gag
other
of just
way.
going. Yeah. But it's done in the same style as like him just walking down the stairs or just going in the other direction or other
So the
tunnel.
other thing to bear in mind here is again we have that Captain Stacy thing. Captain Stacy, well, he retires, so he is protected. Which again I do take issue with because of that opening
You
where
mean George
you see.
Stacy?
What did I say?
You said Kevin Stacy. Was that a Freudian slip for Kevin Spacey?
I'm pretty sure I said Captain Stacy. I don't think I. All right, fine. Well,
Oh,
Captain
I think it was,
Stacy.
okay.
The point being, Captain Stacy is we have the weird thing where again we kind of he evaded being shot in that in the little flash from the first movie. So
Mhm.
here the point being he's retired, so he's safe. And again, that was like the breaking canon event. It would seem that was like kind of the proof in the pudding for Gwen. Everything. So again, presumably we're going to look at a thing where Miles is going to try and dang, Miles wasn't there for that scene, so he's just trying to get back. Period. So it's a question of like maybe Gwen's going to give him the idea of like just tell him to retire, tell him not to take the promotion, he'll be fine.
Yeah, but how will Jefferson take that?
Well, that's the thing. Of course, the big thing is he's going to have to reveal who he is to get him to listen to him.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a total.
And then Jefferson revealed that he's always known or knew beforehand.
Or he's figured.
No,
Or,
there's no way he knew.
He doesn't know now,
No, but like
but he's like, but yeah, he figures it out. He could probably figure it out within that movie, and then like or at least better thing would be like I kind of had a feeling.
Okay, if he's gonna figure, well, he's fine. He's always had a feeling, but if he's good, but that it's very obvious.
Well,
Look, if Jefferson was really paying attention, he would have. I love you. Says you gotta say it back. Oh wait, no, sorry. It's very good. Have a good evening.
Thank you, officer.
I love how
Working with
Gwen in her universe does the whole like hello officer, deep voice gag
Yeah.
with her dad's like I imagine just like if you were to do that often, like your voice must you eventually you'll have to get some like syrup or whatever to like because that's hard to do. Like Bale struggled with that.
Well, you'll notice if you pay attention, Batman the Animated Series and the new Batman Adventures, what they did real subtly is that every time Batgirl dealt with Commissioner Gordon, one, she rarely did it, but two, she was always like in the shadows during those rooftop scenes, or at least the office scenes in which she was there. She would never hang around her father too much. Then again, she had a team though, so this does not help Spider-Gwen at all. I feel I've derailed your point, Rohit, and I'm sorry for that. Yep. Let's see. Earlier on, Jacob, I forget if you brought this up or not. John Kelly had like a really great comment where he says, "My favorite character was Spider-Man." He's not
Yes.
wrong.
No,
No,
he should
like,
have written. He should have written it as Spider no hyphen man, because then it's like, well, which? Well, yeah, it's like if you look at these variants, what it'd be cool if there was a poll among the Spider Society. It's like hyphen or no hyphen.
There you go.
well, so where there's always the hyphen. It's like, the hyphen's always there.
I'm pretty sure I forget which show it was. I think it was Spectacular Spider-Man, in which he made like a whole like whole monologue either in the first episode or like one of the early on ones where he said like it's Spider hyphen Man.
I mean, I don't know. I remember from Spectacular, but like I remember there's a scene in like the Insomniac one, the 2018 Spider-Man game, where he said like write your memoirs, memorize Kingpin. Remember, there's a hyphen between Spider and Man.
I wonder if I don't think that I think they did in both, but I think Jake, you're absolutely right. That's definitely the main. I think it might be the main hyphen example I'm thinking of. But I could have sworn in Spectacular did a hyphen.
You may be entirely correct in that one, Dragon.
I mean, they've used the hyphen gay a couple times in Spider-Man lore, period. So it's possible.
It's a common thing just to remind people, like, yeah, there's a hyphen there, people.
I do love that line though. I love that Kingpin scene in that game where it's just like when you write your memoirs in prison, it's Spider hyphen Man.
It's like there's a hyphen between Spider and Man. And I love they even did bring back Yuri Lowenthal for this movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like that's just this. I wonder if they're going to reference that in the actual Spider-Man 2 game. It's like yeah, they went on this whole multiversal thing. It was very weird. Do you think they'll reference it, Dragon?
Honestly, no, go on.
Will like Yuri Lowenthal Spider-Man even reference the time he?
Yeah, well, he referenced that he was in this giant crossover event thing.
It's like I chased this other variation of you, Miles. It's just like it was a whole thing.
And that was after I did another crossover with like the comics Spider-Verse.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
You're saying Blue Dragon?
I'm going to say probably. I would imagine no. I think the logic would be like the game probably takes place before the Across Spider-Verse.
Like, well, if they ever do a third one, they could reference it then.
That's fair. Honestly, I think it's a thing where they'll never mention it. But if they are going to mention it, it would probably be in a future installment. They can figure out like, okay, let's do the official cross, because they had that thing where in the Miles Morales one, they've added the skin for the game suit, where you could put on like the
where it looks like the Into the Spider-Verse suit.
Exactly. So
you mimic the frame rate.
Yep, animated on 2s again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. All right, I think that's about it.
Yep. Final thoughts, guys.
I hated it. No.
Like, well, folks, you heard it here. Dragon didn't like the movie at all.
Well, no. This is great. Again, it's a great continuation. Again, very much because it's a two-parter. It's not as cleanly broken off as maybe some other two-parters, like an Empire Strikes Back or what have you. But it again, it is compelling as heck. It's great. It's everything I loved about Spider-Verse, but kind of widened and broadened. I mean, again, it's not as direct and simple and just kind of straightforward as the original. But again, the original, I'm pretty convinced, did not know they were coming back for more. That's why it is so cleanly done. But yeah, like them knowing they're coming back for more, they're gonna have like, a lot of space to tell their story. I mean, this feels like the right direction to go in. I'm looking very forward to see how they pull it off.
Rohith.
And in spite of my criticisms and thinking about it, and maybe with the argument that this was Gwen's movie and thus it would be a proper film in that respect, I think overall this movie has made great strides in animation, and especially in looking at the different worlds we won't go through. Great voice acting, especially on the parts of Daniel Kaluuya as Holly Brown, Spider-Punk, Officer Isaac as Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, and Karan Sony as Puppeteer Prabhakar, Spider-Man India, and great writing in terms of the thematics, continuity for Miles' imposter syndrome and lack of belief in himself, to the ideas of fate and determinism, I am very excited to see how Beyond the Spider-Verse ties all this together. Considering this movie is the longest in terms of runtime animated film in American history, I am very interested to see Beyond the Spider-Verse. How long is that movie going to be? And in terms of structure, like where does it just all end for Miguel, and what is sort of the final statement to be made with that character through the Spider-Verse lens?
It is kind of interesting that we haven't really talked about the runtime this entire discussion. But yeah, this is a very long movie. So but either way, my final thoughts it's like this is a great movie. I mean, like I still stand by even after all this. I don't think it's just barely below the original one in terms of quality. I think I still like that one slightly more. Mainly, like I said, it might be due to the novelty of the original one, or maybe nostalgia or bias. But don't be wrong, this one is still fantastic, and you could even call it a cinematic marvel, if you will. But it's a cinematic marvel, if you want to call it that. But it's spectacular. It's amazing. It's a visual treat. It's basically a visual dream. It's like you can basically watch it several times and notice something different in the background every single time. It's basically an animator palette dream. Like it's like basically do yourself a favor and go see it immediately. It's basically worth any investment of your time.
And if you are to wait until it comes out on streaming or video, please try to find it in a format to get the highest quality like image possible, because this movie is just beautiful, like in terms of the animation alone. And
the color palette is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
No,
I
absolutely.
saw this in IMAX by sheer happenstance, and it turned out amazing.
Spectacular.
That too.
Friendly neighborhood. That doesn't make
Indeed.
Indeed. Friendly.
I saw
Multi-
it. I saw it in a friendly neighborhood.
Friendly multiverse Spider-Man.
No,
It
was
was
it
superior.
sensational?
Yeah, it was sensational. It was superior, and it was his amazing friends while we're at it.
And his amazing friends. Yes. It's like so basically it's all the adjectives you can think of for Spider-Man and beyond. So
Ah.
So thank you all for joining us. If you haven't seen it already, go see it. And why not? And if you've already seen it, go see it again.
Yep. See him 4DX, just like John Kelly. Spider John Kelly.
Yes. And seeing in 40X, which is pretty cool.
Mm.
All right. That'll do it for this week. Do it for this time, folks. Join us in 9 months' time when we go beyond the Spider-Verse. Good night, everybody.
Excelsior.
Hold the baby.
Hold the baby.
It'll make you feel better.